What's up? What's happening on a Victory Monday here on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And yes, indeed, the first Victory Monday of what we hope to be many, not only this season, but of the Josh Harris era. We have a 1-0 football team to discuss. It was not pretty, but let's break it all down. During football season, our first segment, we start with 10 observations, and thus we call it First and 10.
It's time to get the breakdown started. First up, 10 observations.
Mr. Good guy and just boom, put it right on the ground.
It's First and 10.
All right, observation number 1. Anthony, do we have the numbers and everything? Dang. All right, we'll pick up the numbers with number 2 and get all fancy with it. But number 1, most importantly, a win is a win is a win is a win. And the bantying about style points is somewhat ridiculous. One, some of y'all are telling on yourselves because you're like so disappointed in Sam Howell or in this thing or that thing for not being perfect. And it's like some of y'all just forgot how week 1 worked. And some of y'all completely underestimated what the issues that Sam Howell is going to have this season as a young quarterback. He showed a lot. We'll get to it in a second. But at the end of the day, if you're style pointing the actual victory, and I don't know what you're doing, they all count. And this is a very week-to-week league. It is matchup dependent. It is, form dependent. It is dependent on a lot of different things. And ultimately, getting the actual W in the column that it belongs in and upping your place in the standings where the Washington Commanders and their ugly, hideous, if you will, win over the league worst Arizona Cardinals and the Dallas Cowboys 40-0 shellacking of a playoff team from last year and the New York Giants count the same. And it's important to keep that in mind. I can't believe I have to remind people, but watching the discourse after the game made me think that it perhaps is something that needed to happen. A win is a win is a win is a win, and you don't start down 14-0 next week because you won this one ugly. Was it great? Absolutely not. From a performance standpoint, does the process need to be better if they're going to win against teams that aren't Arizona? Yes. But there's only so mad you should be about a win because it's a win and you start anew going into next week. Another reminder for number 2.
Number 2.
Football games are 60 minutes long. And it is always hilarious to me to watch with Twitter up or a social media app up because the freaking out that happens, snap in and snap out, is just overzealous, fandom. And, this is the kind of thing that happened. It's a lack of objectivity. It is completely irrational and emotional. And in many ways, that's what makes sports great. But I wanted to underscore this, the emotional roller coaster that this team is going to put fans on this year in an effort to, 1, provide some analysis, but 2, maybe let you protect yourself a little bit emotionally as you watch these games. This Commanders team is different than any Washington team that you have seen for most of you in your lifetime, for some of you in 30 years. Just depends on whether you're old enough to remember the bad Washington football franchise. This team is in shape. This team is fit. This team is going to do stuff late in games that they have not done in the past. The wait for them to slip on the banana peel is not going to come, I'm not going to say ever, but it's not going to come with the regularity because this team is built to wear teams down and do their thing late in games. It's one thing to compete with someone for a half, a quarter, or whatever. It's another to do it for a full 60 minutes. And this team showed yesterday that it's built for 60 minutes and that Eric Bieniemy, the way he manages a game, is for the 60 minutes. Again, the turnovers, all that kind of stuff, we'll get to it. But it's not coincidence that at the end of that game, Washington was able to run the football down Arizona's throats. It wasn't just all of a sudden that they tried, that there was more attempts, and perhaps there should have been more running earlier in the game. But when it got late, Arizona was exhausted from chasing them around all game. And Washington was still at its peak performance. And when there's degradation in the opponent and you're still at your peak, that is how you dominate in the NFL. Same thing on the other side of the ball. Arizona wasn't up for it. And Washington's relentlessness just kept coming. Montez Sweat, if you are just dog tired, blocking him, who when he's in this kind of shape, is a nightmare. Same thing with Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne. They just keep coming. And so, yes, there are elite players on that side of the ball, and we'll talk about some of their performances as we go through our final 8 points here in our 1st and 10. But by and large, I think that we have to think about games a little bit differently now than we have before. This isn't a team that's going to hold on for dear life at the end. This is a team that's going to try to impose its will for 60 minutes, and my guess is over the last quarter, on a more often than not basis, they will. How the first 3 quarters go will, of course, impact their ability to do that and what that looks like. But, I think people need to kind of adjust their expectations. We talked about it all preseason long, and I don't think people fully internalized what that meant for this team to be more fit, to be more in shape, to play with the tempo that it does. It wears you down. It's like if anyone's ever seen the Kipchoge challenge, right? Eliud Kipchoge is the world record holder in the marathon. And the Kipchoge challenge is how long can you run at his pace? Most people couldn't make it a lap around a track because it's like a barely over a minute for a quarter mile. It's just over 4-minute mile pace. But if the race is only 40 meters or 100 meters long, there's a lot of people that look like they're in as good a shape as Eliud Kipchoge. You do 60 seconds of it, and you get almost a full quarter mile, and a lot of people that are still left. And there's no one that can do the marathon at that pace. And I'm not saying this Commanders team is, the best ever in terms of conditioning, but they're on the upper echelon of this league, and that is going to matter when they try to force teams to keep up with them over the course of 60 minutes, over the course of 4 quarters. All right, to the quarterback in number 3.
Number 3.
Sam Howell is who I thought he was. I'm going to say that again. Sam Howell is who I thought he was, which is a promising young quarterback who's going to show great poise, who's going to show flashes, but is not fully ready for the big time yet. I think there will be moments this year, and even full games, where he's incredible. He'll have a 300-yard game this year. He'll have a 3-touchdown, no-pick game probably. But week in, week out, I think it's a lot more likely to look like this. You see the poise. It never got too big for him. He never got happy feet. Did he make some bad decisions? Yes. Did he, not see some things? Yes. But he's got to know where to look, and he's got to get some game experience, and he's got to adjust to the speed of a real regular season game in a way that he just hasn't played very many yet. Now 2. And, how much do you want to count that Dallas game with no real pressure in it last year, and Dallas not seemingly fully engaged? What you're going to see is hopefully cleaning up of some of the silly mistakes, some of the things that are pretty easy to clean up, And then him get confused at times, him struggle with protections at times, him miss throws at times, and over time, those things happening less and less. For instance, the sack fumble that is a touchdown for Arizona. The sack there, I think, is on Andrew Wiley. He just loses. I think he's expecting help from the back. He doesn't get it. It affects how he sets. He ultimately loses. At the end of the day, like, you got to win that as your right tackle. But that's not Sam's blind side. He saw it happen. He saw it coming. You got to feel that. You got to see that. And you've just got to go. We are in the shadow of our own end zone. I believe it was a third down even. Like, we're about to punt. Just punt. Be okay. Being okay with punting is an essential quarterback survival skill in the NFL. And I don't think Sam Howell's okay enough with punting yet. And there's something admirable about that because he always thinks he can make a play. And there are moments when that never say die attitude will help him. But managing it is key to surviving in the NFL, and especially on a team where the defense is this good. Understanding you can't expose the football like that is essential. Just go down. Just eat it. And there are other times, obviously, as Ron talked about today in his press conference, like, he's going to have to learn to be a survivor on the running stuff too. You can't take a bunch of hits. And, the one on the sideline's a dirty hit. There's nothing really he can do about that. Hey, Kaiser White, how about you don't be a dirty player? That'd be sweet. It's a ridiculous hit. There was another hit later on the sideline that I thought was a little, when he slid, that was a little cheap. And there's a clip going around where, like, the Arizona defender then puts, like, he makes like a sandwich with his legs out of Sam Howell's head and, like, slams it to the ground. It's very bizarre. Like, I don't know what they're doing over there in Arizona, but little cheap, little dirty, or a lot cheap and a lot dirty in case of the Kaiser White hit, which should have been an ejection. But point is, like, don't expose yourself if you're Howell to some of these hits. Just get down easy, pop back up, on to the next play, throw the ball away. Or when you are going to get hit, you are going to get sacked, by all means, protect the football. These are the things that he can learn quickly. Some of the other stuff is going to take time. But I think it's imperative for everyone's mental sanity, and if you want to be smart about the game, to realize that if you just thought Sam, because he's got a good arm and great poise and speaks well at the podium and shows the demeanor of a starting quarterback, is going to go out there and crush it, you haven't been paying attention to the NFL, because this is really hard. It's really, really, really hard, and there's going to be a process, and it's going to involve some patience if you want him to ultimately develop into that A-level starter that he has the physical talent to be able to be. All right, on to the rest of the offense.
Number 4.
This actually works out well because you know who number 4 is? Curtis Samuel, and he's my number 4. He was what I would call on schedule yesterday. I like the way they got him involved in the game. A couple of catches where he's just a regular wide receiver, a couple of screens. He didn't do a lot with them. You obviously like to see more than that, and I think you will at times. He had one carry, which I loved, and he got pretty good yardage on it. So I think Bieniemy kind of keeping tabs on his touches in a way to make sure that he gets enough of them that Curtis has the chance to make explosive plays is imperative. One thing that I'm tracking, and when I get a chance to sit down and watch the film tomorrow morning, I'll be paying closer attention to, is how Terry McLaurin was used. I do not love him only getting 4 targets. It is one game. I'm not going to freak out about it, but I am going to put a pin in it as something to watch. And, perhaps when we go back and watch the tape, we'll understand that he was targeted more, and Arizona really just made a concerted effort to make sure the ball went other places. But I tend to think that the ball in this offense goes where you design it. And I would like it to see designed to go to Terry McLaurin more often. Jahan Dotson, by the way, also on schedule for the receiving portion of it. I think he had 7 targets. That seems about right. He's going to have a monster year. And then there's this guy.
Number 5.
Logan Thomas definitely needs to play better. This is his first game healthy in a long, long time. He missed a ton of time in camp. He was really, really good in camp. And I'm hoping that with a little bit of rust knocked off, he can get back to that. But there's too many balls that hit him in the hands that wind up on the ground. Some of them were very, very tough catches. Some of them were not that tough, and he should have brought him in. But if you're going to be the tight end 1 in this offense, like, you got to be dynamic. You got to be good getting open. You got to catch the ball, and hopefully you do something with it after the catch. And Logan is tough. Logan is talented. I think he's still pretty good based off what I saw early in training camp. But if the Commanders are going to win football games, they're going to have to get more out of that tight end position because the opportunities were there, which shows you how good this offense is at getting that position open. And Travis Kelce obviously has feasted on that to a Hall of Fame career. Not that I think Logan Thomas is going to be that because he's not Travis Kelce. But, man, that dude should be like borderline Pro Bowl level production this year because of the opportunities he's going to inherently get. And yesterday was not very inspiring in terms of the actual outcome of those opportunities. And whether that means putting Cole Turner in some of those opportunities more often or just, I guess, you don't get them and you lose football games, those seem to be the options for the way I see it right now at the tight end position. All right, to the defense.
Number 6.
Montez Sweat is a monster. He is so good in all phases. And look, Allen had a great game. Payne had a great game as well. But for 2 years running now, when this team needs a play, Montez Sweat has been the guy to make it. And to do that at that position with such consistency is pretty remarkable. And it's going to get him paid. Like, this dude's going to make $24 million a year. And right now, that seems like a bargain if he's going to have a sack and a half every game. His ability to get pressure, and by the way, he plays the run as extremely well. He has since he was a rookie. Stout on the edge, disciplined in his rushes. You can't run away from him because he's too fast. He makes plays down the field if he's given the opportunity. He'll chase guys down because he's such a freakish athlete. What a day yesterday for Montez Sweat. And it kind of really set the tone for the defense. On to number 7.
Number 7.
On the other side, those guys were not as good as Montez Sweat because they are not as talented, but they did their jobs at an exceptionally high level, and they deserve love for it. James Smith-Williams, Casey Tuhill. James specifically, who was the starter and got more snaps, the way he sets the edge and is so physical helps feed the sacks and the big plays of Daron Payne, of Montez Sweat, of John Allen, because there's nowhere to go as a quarterback. And, the easiest thing to do as a quarterback is right-handed, as Joshua Dobbs was and is roll to your right. You just go forward. Your eyes are still in front of you in the direction that you're going to throw. You're not looking back across your body at all. You're not trying to kind of awkwardly turn your body to throw. Ideally, you are rolling to your right. And because the way Smith-Williams rushes, where he just sets that hard edge and keeps the pocket contained, that's not an option for even a mobile quarterback like Dobbs. So what do? Okay, well, if you're going to force me up, I'm going to go up in the pocket. Well, the problem is when you face the Commanders, going up in the pocket means entering the land of Allen and Payne. You don't want to do that. And then against the run, the way he is able to string runs out and get upfield and push some outside runs to go even more horizontal, that was hugely impactful and created some tackles for loss and some very short run gains on what would have been probably some bigger plays. So just a fantastic job by James. Casey, I thought, also had some really good rushes. He kind of came in more as a third down rusher. And ironically, those guys prove their value not only with what they do, but compared to the young guys, as Andre Jones Jr. on the one big run Arizona got early in that game, he's the guy out of gap. He gets pushed out of the way, and there's a big run to the edge. It's kind of that reverse game plan run where they it's a tough gig. It's a tough job. That one's schemed up to take advantage of certain things, but Andre Jones Jr. Played it in a way that I don't think any of the other guys would have, the more veteran ones who have seen a little bit more. And as a result, it's a big gain for Arizona. So those veteran guys, we talked about why they were so important to keep, why you initially put 11 linemen on your 53. They proved it yesterday, and they're going to continue to be a big part of this team, even, I think, when Chase Young gets back, even though the snap counts will look very, very different. All right, to the layer behind them before we get to two more things and close out our 1st and 10.
Number 8.
The linebackers played a lot better than anticipated yesterday. I don't remember any major busts. I guess there was one with Jamin Davis up the sideline on the rail route to the running back. That's one I'm going to have to watch back on the All 52 I almost used the Ron Rivera term, the All 53. That was a wacky bit today at his press conference. What do you guys watch, the All 53? I thought you could see all of them. No, Ron, it's the All 22, the same coach's tape that you watch. What do you think that we have access to? Anyway, the point is, once we watch back the All 22, like, we'll get a better feel for what Jamin perhaps was supposed to do on that one play. But largely no coverage bust, and they were really good in run support. You know, Arizona did, outside of kind of one big run, they didn't really move the ball all day. There weren't really a ton of gaps. I mean, they averaged 3.8 on the ground, but that's in large part due to that one big 29-yarder by Hollywood Brown. Next longest run on the day was 12 by James Conner. So, I mean, it's a pretty good day at the office, I think, for Cody Barton and for Jamin Davis. You could see them getting downhill with regularity. And I think that was the thing. You know, they weren't late triggering stuff. And so that was the thing that I was really waiting to see is, you know, are they late on whether it's play action recognition, late getting downhill to the run? And I thought they were pretty good from what I could see on the TV copy yesterday. All right, final two notes here for our 1st and 10.
Number 9.
Cameron Cheeseman bounced another one. I truly, honestly don't know what Ron Rivera is waiting for. You either tell him, buddy, you go back to the way you used to snap it when the ball got to Tress Way, or we're going to find someone else to do this. That you lose games that way. And I cannot fathom being an NFL head coach who has personnel control and looking at my long snapper give me a heart attack every time I send him out there and thinking, this is fine. And this is not personal to Cheeseman. I know it works really hard. He has been working really hard. I admire him for trying to get better at his craft. But eventually, there are it's not like quarterback. There aren't 32 good NFL quarterbacks on planet Earth. There's like 50 or 60 long snappers probably. Go find another one. It's why they don't get paid a lot of money. They're really, it is incredibly difficult to do, but it's not, that's only if we're talking as, mere mortal human beings. If you've been a long snapper in Division I, half of those dudes could theoretically do the job at an adequate level in the NFL. I cannot fathom having a long snapper that gives you anything other than perfect snaps with extreme regularity, and certainly not having one who gives you a bad snap every other time out, and that's what he's been this preseason. Wild.
Number 10.
Last but not least, on a much happier note, kudos to the fans. What a job yesterday turning FedEx Field into a place that was a fantastic home environment. It came through on television. As y'all know that listen to the show on Friday, I was planning on going to the game. Unfortunately, I have COVID, so I am stuck in my little home studio COVID cave and was not able to go to the game. But I'm definitely going to try to go as soon as I can, because what a raucous atmosphere. Adam Amin, who joined us on Friday, who's on the broadcast for Fox, him and Schlereth did a great job yesterday. He texted me last night. He's like, dude, that was different than I felt like I was in a different place than I was when I was here the last several years. It just was different. And whether you were there or watching on TV, it was extremely clear, certainly noticed by those who were on the field. Here was Jonathan Allen this morning on the Sports Junkies talking about what he experienced.
That was the best crowd environment at FedEx Field that I've seen in my entire career. And
whole career?
My whole career. And when the fans come out and support like that, it just, I want to win for them. I want to play harder for them, So, like I said, we're just really happy to get them the win, give them something to go home about and have a good rest of the week until next week. And, we can start it all over again. But, it was a really fun game for us.
Yeah. Tremendous environment. And, if this is going to be a defense-first football team, a home crowd can matter. Make that communication hard. Bring the energy when the defense is out there. Kudos to the fans. Y'all deserve to have that celebration yesterday. Deserve to be a win. And on and up from here is hopefully what we'll see. Logan and I talked about this game, of course, right after it yesterday for Take Command. We'll let you hear Logan's thoughts next. Michael Phillips back with us this season for Mondays with Michael. So Phillips coming up for Not My Beat at 5. We'll go around the NFL at 5:30. Our pick 6 at 6. We're loaded. Don't go anywhere. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live as well on the free Odyssey app.
Kevin Shield.
Hoffman Show. We are on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app and streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. That, by the way, is the place you could have caught our live stream last night. Myself and Logan Paulson for the Take Command post-game recap podcast. I will now let you listen to the podcast taping live as we stream it on not only 980's page, but 106.7 The Fans. That is after each and every game. But in case you missed it, in case you're not a podcast subscriber, I won't shame you. I will just remind you that you can subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the free Odyssey app, or anywhere else you get your pods. We do like to play a little bit for you here on the radio. And so with that, here was our first impressions of the game from last night. Logan Paulson and me on Take Command.
It's time to take command with former NFL tight end Logan Paulson and former Commanders beat reporter Craig Hoffman.
What's up? What's happening? Welcome into Take Command post-game. And Logan, for the first time ever, we are live on both 106.7 The Fan and the Team 980's YouTube pages. What's up, buddy? From FedEx Field.
From FedEx Field, that's right. Not much, man. Just watched a football game today. That was a lot of fun. The fans were going crazy. It was cool to see all of the the legends around the building and saying hi to everybody. So it was a pretty cool day. Again, kind of had you wringing your hands a little bit more than you'd probably like, but that's life, I guess, in the NFL. So.
Yeah, I've got one big takeaway from this game that we'll get to in a second, and obviously many smaller ones. But first, like we said going in, the number one story is the atmosphere. The number one story is kind of how everything is there at FedEx Field. So how was it?
Yeah, so, I got here a little bit late because I was doing the pregame show with Denton, obviously, because you were sick. And then
by the way, feeling better. Be happy to be back next week. Still locked in my COVID cave.
Yeah, good. So walking to the stadium from my car, and you could hear the stadium, and it just was like you were approaching like this beast, from the mile away that I had to park. And it was like, I don't know if I've ever remember the stadium being like that, like kind of up and down, and you could hear it, and it was like it was breathing. It was really, really cool. You walk in, there was like this kinetic energy. You're walking up to the press box, everybody's watching quietly, and the fans are going nuts outside. It rained for a portion of the game, and everyone stayed in their seats. It was a pretty cool atmosphere. It was a pretty cool atmosphere for sure.
Yeah, it definitely came through on television. I mean, especially in the second half as the defense started to get going, like it sounded like a raucous NFL stadium. And you don't get that in every game every weekend. You get that in some of the best atmospheres in the league, and you had that coming through the TV on the Fox broadcast. But to me, Logan, my biggest takeaway is that this was a great reminder in week one that football is a 60-minute game. And we talked so much during the preseason and during training camp about how much better condition this team would be for this season and how much in better shape that they were. And it was kind of funny watching the game, from my couch and being on Twitter and watching everyone freak out. And I'm just kept looking at the scoreboard going like, this is a one-score game. Like it's 60 minutes. They've got to figure some stuff out, but they're primed to do it. And I think what you saw late in this game is the Commanders playing their absolute best, especially defensively late in that game as Arizona wore down. You saw the running game on offense get going a little bit more as Arizona started to wear down. And it was a great reminder for all the freaking out that everyone loves to do a quarter into every single game. If you follow them along on social media during. And we'll talk about Howell, and we'll talk about the O-line, and we'll talk about all the other things that need to be cured up from an execution standpoint. But these are long games where there's a lot of twists and turns. And after years and years and years of them turning the wrong way for this franchise, the way that this team has been built and the way this team has been conditioned and calloused through the preseason, if you watch the Commanders Log YouTube series, that's the word that Ron used, it's going to benefit them in close games and late games. And that's what today was. And looky who came out on the right side of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a little bit of that freaking out comes from, like that history that you're talking about. People freak out because it's like they've been burned in the past. And you could it felt a little like in the first, I got here in the second quarter. So in the second quarter, it felt a little bit like a traditional game Like it just wasn't clicking offensively. It didn't feel like there was a lot of energy from the team. And so you're like, man, if this doesn't turn around quickly, like Carolina, like that defense was absolutely ripping around the field, and looked like an NFL defense. They were making a ton of plays. They were playing with great energy, and it just felt like it wasn't clicking. And I think that's where that kind of, apprehension and worry and rumination kind of came from the Twitter people. And because you could feel it here in the stadium too, the fans were groaning and they were urging the team on. So I definitely think that was part of it. But like you said, it is a long game. And so I think part of it was it's like you're so used to the game ebbing, and then, the saying is ebb and flow, but it's never flowing. It's always just ebbing away, right? And today was a really nice kind of, there was an ebb. It didn't look very good for a minute. They come back out, still ebbing, and then the defense makes that great 3-and-out where, Duran gets the TFL, James and Allen have the TFL, Montez has the forced fumble, and then you could just feel it. I could feel EB willing this offense to 7 points. It was 3 runs, and they were 3 of the hardest runs I've ever seen in the NFL. B-Rob just fighting and clawing and scratching for every inch. And then they score. And I was just that is something that sequence felt a little bit different to me than in years past, because it was here's this moment. And in years past, the offense would have kicked a field goal and it wouldn't have been great, but they were just we need to score 7 points. And they just seemed hell-bent on doing it, which was pretty cool. So.
Yeah, definitely. The way Sam is able to maneuver for both of the touchdowns shows you, I think, the upside. And by the way, how you score in the red zone, a lot of it comes off schedule. You either nail your play call on schedule and the right guy's open, or it's oh crap, we're going to have to run around a little bit. And sure enough, that's how they score their 2 touchdowns. Unfortunately, Sam gives up the touchdown on the other end of it on the fumble. Overall, what do you make of his performance in his second career start and his first as a true QB1?
Honestly, it was kind of what I expected. I know I said he'd score, touchdown, but I was he'll have a turnover at some point. I don't know what it'll be, fumble, interception, whatever it is, and he'll be on. He'll look good at moments, and he'll kind of look like a rookie at moments. And I think the thing that really was nice is that in those red zone moments, like you alluded to, the moment wasn't too big for him, and you saw a guy who's going to make some plays for you. And that first touchdown, I mean, that was tremendous. He's kind of falling away. I don't know who he's throwing it to, but he's throwing it to somebody, and it gets where it's got to go. And B-Rob ends up with a touchdown. So I think that was nice to see in those big, gotta have it critical. That's such a critical down. Especially with the second one, it's you gotta have that touchdown. If you don't have it, you lose the game. And I think everyone here could feel. I think the staff knew that. For him to kind of be Mr. Composure in that moment was really cool, and stack that on top of the fact that he had kind of a rough first half. Interception. He had the fumble that ended up leading to 6 points, and that's how the Cardinals ended up with 10 points. Right, it was off Sam Howell turnovers. So, some good, some bad, but I thought the good was very, very good, and I thought some of those throws, on the 2-minute drive that ended up with a field goal right before half, I thought he did some really nice stuff there.
By the way, how about Bieniemy being gas pedal?
Yeah, we talked about it on the postgame show. That is talk about a mindset, bro. That is a mindset. Most coaches, I'd say, I don't know, maybe Kyle Shanahan, maybe Andy Reid are going to run the football twice there. Run the football twice, 55-second clicks off. We're going to live to fight another day, especially after something like that. But talk about having tremendous confidence in your offense, in your young quarterback, and then having tremendous confidence yourself to get everything dialed up the way it needs to get dialed up. So kudos to him, because again, a defining 3 points right there in a game that's won by 4. That's a big deal. So love that aggressive mindset. Love they were able to execute, and it goes back to what you were talking about in terms of conditioning. And I think you're talking more about physical conditioning, which is definitely on display, but also I think that has something to do with kind of a mental conditioning and having been in those situations, literally every day at training camp, they do a 2-minute drill, and it's a long, kind of arduous 2-minute drill. So it just felt like it felt like something that I haven't felt here in a while, which is it felt very matter of fact. It felt like a matter of fact
really
2-minute drive. We're going to do a 2-minute drive. Here we go. It wasn't oh God, we're freaking out. You know what I mean? And they made plays. They did what they had to do, and loved it. Just I love that element by him.
2-minute should be something that more teams are good at. And I know that sounds crazy because the odds and everything says that they shouldn't, but like teams become very predictable defensively in 2 minutes. And so if you know what the defense is going to run, then you can get there with tempo. They're not going to change it. Like if you know it's cover 2, like it's pretty easy to play in the NFL, or if you know it's cover 4. So like obviously defenses can mix it up, and good coordinators have taught their guys how to mix it up with just enough to throw offenses off. But it is an area where if you can get a team stuck in a coverage, you can attack time and time again, and they're able to do that. I think overall, when I look at how it's exactly what I thought it would be, to your point, like the upside, incredible. You see the playmaking ability, you see some of the big throws. He should have had more yardage in the first half. Logan Thomas had a couple balls I thought he should have held on to. But he also, he's not afraid to give his guys chances either. There's some, I would say, contested balls that are not really, nobody's fault on an incompletion. But Sam puts it where his guy's going to get it or it's going to get knocked out, and the defense made good plays. I think the tail of the tape is going to be in some of those situations, did he have other options? And I think that's going to be the biggest thing is when we go back and watch the film, and specifically when you get to the 6 sacks, like it felt like on some of those, it's immediate pressure. On some of those, he's holding the ball for a long time, and you're just going, there's got to be someone open. Obviously, watching from the couch and not getting a whole lot of all 22 replays, hard for me to tell. And obviously, we'll be back or going back and watching that on tape. But even then, like there's game management stuff. The fumble touchdown, the sack is on Wiley. The fumble touchdown is on Sam. Like at that point, you've got to have better ball security. You got to know the time score situation where you are in the field. So there's those learning opportunities. But over all of it, the thing that gives me the most hope for him this season, and the thing that I'm most impressed is he never gets flustered. He's just the same dude the whole time. He's getting rocked out of bounds illegally on a hit that should have been an ejection by Kaiser White. He's not getting caught up in that emotion. He sack fumble, not caught up in that emotion. Celebrates the touchdowns, but doesn't get caught up in it. And he's just a steady guy throughout the entire game. And if he can maintain that over the course of a season, this team's going to be in a lot of games.
Yeah, and I think on the post-game show, I was like, this is a good building block. It's not the cleanest offensive brand of football. I think there's a lot of stuff that you look at and you say you could have done better. I think, kudos to Jonathan again. Like we talked about some of the things he might change and some things he might do differently with Sam Howell at the helm, and given his personnel, I thought they did a great job kind of being a little bit more aggressive with their match coverages and their zones, which made the windows a little bit smaller. I thought they did a great job of disguising stuff. Like you could tell there was times where it looks like a pressure look. They've got this crazy overload look on. They drop out of it. They end up bringing another guy to the weak side. It ends up being just because he's like, I know where the ball's got to go. And then all of a sudden there's guys there and it's like, oh, shoot, And so I just thought that was like Jonathan again, like with a rookie quarterback, like did what you're supposed to do. Confuse them, make them hold the football, put them under a little bit of pressure. And that's what he did. And I think it's a great learning experience because he's going to see more of that kind of stuff each and every week. He's going to see a ton of that when he goes to Denver. But I do think that there's a lot of really positive stuff to take away. And I don't think got to protect the football better. I mean, the Gibson's got to protect the football better. All that stuff.
Bad fumble, man.
Yeah. And,
they were clicking too. The thing is, Logan, in the first half, Sam wound up with like 169 yards.
Yeah.
And that was with very little running game. And he only had 202 for the game. And they started to run it more in the second half, obviously. Robinson, after, single-digit carries by a lot in the first half, he finishes with 19 carries on the game. Yeah. And so the balance comes eventually, but it is the kind of thing where, they had great stats in the first half, but they didn't hold on to the football and obviously didn't even get field goals out of it because of the turnovers. And then in the second half, they held on to the football, were more productive from a scoring standpoint accordingly, and didn't really actually do that much offensively.
No, I agree. And, it's been funny. I've been a part of some games like that aren't super clean. You turn the football over a lot. And for whatever reason, you just get more bites at the apple, or you're driving the football longer. So you tend to be a little bit more prolific in terms of your offensive statistic. It's very odd. Like I was in a game where Matt Barkley threw 4 interceptions, and I think we threw for over 450 yards because he's throwing a pick six. We get the ball back. We drive, what I mean? It's just right. There's more stuff to do. I'm not saying that's exactly what happened here, but I do think there is something to that. But yeah, he was productive. I thought there were times where it looked super sharp, looked super clean. And other times it didn't. And I think that's what we were trying to impart to our listeners was there's a reason there's a precedent in the NFL that young quarterbacks don't do well. And a little bit of it's because like defensive coordinators can just show them a whole bunch of different stuff, basically flashing a bunch of lights in their face while they're trying to play quarterback. And it's enough to offset them. And I think that's what happened here a little bit today. But to your point, like the composure of Sam Howell was such that he was able to kind of, in those definitive moments, make plays. And I also wanted to bring this up real quick. I thought there was a really nice, I think the word is maturity by EB, to kind of identify what was going on with the offense and say what was going on with the offense and what was going on with the defense and say, hey, we can shift this into a slower gear. We don't need to be trying to put up 50 points. We need to score. We have to score. We need to be a little bit more methodical. And I think that's what you see in the second half. Kind of shorten the game, let the defense make plays for you, and really lean into that. And I think to their credit, because sometimes that doesn't pay off. The defense totally stood up and did an excellent job with that. So.
Yeah, so let's talk specifically about the decision late. It's 3rd and 6. They're in the red zone. It's already a 33-yard field goal. A lot of teams now are more likely to say, like, hey, let's try to win this. We're going to win this game right here. I thought they made the exact correct decision and
for
had
the game.
No business. Yep. Yeah. So it's already, at that point, you run it, you waste another 40 seconds off the clock, you make it a 4-point game. I don't think Arizona's offense has shown that they can score a touchdown on you remotely. A field goal is a different story. Like if you just got to drive the ball between the 20s and then kick a long field goal and send it to overtime, that's a different story. Or win the game. That's a different story. Yeah. 4 points, and the less time to do it, to score the touchdown, to me is the right move there 10 times out of 10, especially with the way this defense was playing at that point in the game. Any disagreement, any thought of doing anything otherwise?
I mean, there was a little bit of the boo birds going on here at the stadium when they made that decision, but I kind of was like, Ron's a defensive coach. The defense has been playing lights out. You look at Carolina's offensive production, and they did some stuff defensively that I thought was elite. That was like, man, this team is a winning defensive football team. But offensively, I don't think at any point they showed anything that made you go, they're going to be able to drive the length of the field versus our defense. I didn't see one element of that. No. I'm a little surprised they didn't try to take more shots. I will say my heart kind of skipped a beat when they took that shot off the play action to Wilson on the sideline where he kind of jumped up, and I thought he was going to catch it, but he kind of like was loose, and then Fuller punched it out. Like that would have been a dagger there, obviously. But to your point, like, and to the general point, like they didn't do anything offensively, Arizona, that made you think, yes, in this moment when they got to have it, they're going to do it with Joshua Dobbs at the quarterback position. So they're not going to score a touchdown. The best they're going to do is kick a field goal. You know what I'm saying? Let's play the odds here. And while like the purest offensive mind in me was like, go for the touchdown, I was like, this is where the analytics gets a little bit funny, because analytically, go for the touchdown. Like 9 times.
Or you just go for the first down, right?
Yeah, or whatever.
Score, right? You just have to get a first down, and then you can run out the clock.
But this is like one of those times where, like, I think you brought up the analogy with Sean McVay and like his right guard blocking Aaron Donald, or whatever the analogy is.
Yeah, that's what Sean used to always talk about, right?
And it's like that was this game. It was like, analytically, you probably should go for that and kill the game. But the way this game is flowing, this field goal does exactly the same thing.
Yeah, I have a more apt sample than the entirety of NFL history. I have this game of Cardinals offense versus this game of Washington defense, and specifically the last 3 drives where we have been dominant defensively, and our pass rush is starting to murder their offensive line in a must-pass situation. That's easy math there. And the other thing too is, because I had someone on Twitter, and again, I hate to reference like someone on Twitter, but like there's a counter argument of like, well, look, it's already a 33-yard field goal. Try for it if you just roll Sam out. He either slides or if he throws out of bounds, he throws out of bounds. You lose 40 seconds. The game ends without the Cardinals offense ever getting the ball back, really. And that when you fast forward a drive, an extra 40 seconds, Dobbs has an extra time to try to move him down the field, all that kind of stuff. And so that's where you see when all of a sudden they truly do have to burn all their timeouts, where those 40 seconds and how much one single, pass or run decision can affect the game. The game essentially ends as Tressway kicks the ball in the air. And so that is, to me, that was easily the right decision. All right, that from Take Command, which we put out now 3 times weekly. Tomorrow morning, we will record our newest podcast, a deep dive into the tape. So make sure you're subscribed to Take Command wherever you get your podcast. Coming up next here on The Hoffman Show. Last year, we had Michael Phillips each and every Monday, and this year, we're doing it again. Michael, now part of the Odyssey family, hosting on 910 The Fan in Richmond each and every weekday, following the Junkies down there from 10 to noon, and then joining us on Mondays at 5. Phillips next here on The Hoffman Show on the team at 980.
You can listen to the
It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. That same Odyssey app that Michael Phillips, in a classic bite from this here radio program, referenced in that hour open, and the same one that you can now hear him on every day from 10 a.m. to noon. Yes, boys and girls, Michael Phillips, MP on the mic. Brand new show on 910 The Fan down in Richmond. And if that wasn't enough, Anthony, let's welcome in Michael for Not My Beat and then make our final announcement in terms of Phillips.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in. Not My Beat.
That's right. Michael, on a Monday, and Mr. Phillips, you have, unless you just did that sleepily last night and didn't realize what you agreed to do this all season long once again. Mondays with Michael is officially back, baby. Yeah!
We went like 16th or 18th last year. It was a pretty good – I did better than the team. I promise you that. I feel like it was a pretty good percentage. I always enjoy the chat. And Monday's a great day to do it because we got so much to talk about. You know, I ran out of time there on my show today, 10 to noon. I felt like we had so much more to cover. And I just thought, all right, let's bank this for that July 17th show when we're when we're really scraping the bottom of the barrel. You know, it goes around and it comes around.
It does. So you want to know my hot take now after doing this a couple years, full time every day? I actually think that August 17th is harder than July 17th.
Because you don't have the excitement of football coming. It's just training camp.
So yeah,
news.
Everyone understands that on July 17th, it's the middle of July and nothing really is happening and there's anticipation. By August 17th, you feel like you should have some kind of information, and what you realize is all you have is training camp, which is a whole bunch of proverbial empty calories.
You know, so many people ask me if I missed not covering training camp, and there were some aspects of it I definitely missed. It's a great time to build relationships with the players. You do get to see behind the scenes a lot more than you do in season. But in terms of the day-to-day cranking out the reportage, you know, once you've done a few of them, you realize everything you say is probably going to be proven wrong as soon as an actual kickoff happens.
Right. Which brings us to not quite September 17th, but September 10th yesterday when there was an actual kickoff. What to you was the most important thing or most interesting thing that happened yesterday between the Commanders, Cardinals, or in the stands, as obviously that is a major story as well?
Yeah, I think I would take the off the field as the major story. I think they did a great job. And one of the things I think people don't appreciate about this new ownership group, because we've heard about them for a very long time. We've heard this has been coming for a very long time. The NFL, though, was very clear with them that they were not to meddle with the business or start doing anything until the sale was official, which was mid-July. Now, obviously, I'm sure they were brainstorming. I'm sure they were writing on napkins. I'm sure they were having conference calls. But they really have done a lot that has been very impressive in that short amount of time. The way the stadium looked was very sharp, I thought. You know, the way they brought back the legends, had Portis and Champ Bailey there.
Yeah.
I thought that was
what
really
a picture,
cool.
by the way, having those two together.
Yeah. You know, flying in Sonny, and he was there next to Harris. I think they deserve a ton of credit. And selling the place out, obviously. I mean, let's just go to the most obvious one there. I think they deserve a lot of credit for putting together a really fun day of football for everybody involved.
No doubt. And, you know, you hope that it continues to improve. The one thing I forgot to check on, the old ingress, egress. Harris made a big deal out of that. I know they did some stuff to shut down certain roads and help flow out of the stadium yesterday. I didn't see any major reports that worked one way or the other. I certainly hope it does, as someone who plans on going to a couple games this year and needs to get out quickly because he would like to get back home and do his post-game show at a reasonable hour. But,
can I nerd out for a second on you?
Yeah, let's go. Highway Patrol, Phillips, off you go.
Essentially, a highway can only take, at the most, like if they do everything correctly that they plan on doing it and want to execute, they can only put 7,000 cars an hour on a highway going one direction. And of course, there's only one highway there. It goes two directions. But no matter how good they are at it, the maximum number of cars you can put on the Beltway in an hour from that spot is 14,000. So at the end of the day, you're going to have to sit in your car a little while. You're going to have to wait after the game. I grew up going to games at Arrowhead Stadium, Kansas City. Very fun atmosphere, lots of people. After the game, you just sit by your car, watch the late games on TV, cook some hot dogs. You're not going anywhere. That's part of attending a pro football game at a place that doesn't have Metro access, which is why every time we talk about the stadium, I think Metro access is very important.
That is a very good point. Also in Kansas City, with all due respect to all the tailgaters, the tailgating is better in terms of food. In Kansas City, if you walk through the parking lot of Arrowhead and you like barbecue, you're going to be very hungry by the time you get inside because the smells
There are two parking lots in the NFL that have very distinctive smells, Craig. The Kansas City one, which of course smells like barbecue, and the old Oakland Raiders parking lot,
Smell
which
different.
was literally just a cloud of marijuana as you walked into the stadium.
You don't get that in Vegas. You probably could, but not as distinctly as Oakland. All right, Michael Phillips is
Chris Jones back with the Chiefs, by the way. Just came across the old wires here.
There you go. That didn't. I guess he got a raise. I guess that probably happened at some point. I guess we'll follow up on that when we go around the NFL at 5:30. Phillips with us here on the Hoffman Show. Again, the new show which you can listen to 10 to noon on the Odyssey app via 910 The Fan, or if you're obviously driving down in Richmond, check him out 10 to noon each and every day on 910 The Fan. So. On the field, Sam Howell is obviously like the most interesting thing. You've got some good, you've got some bad. Overall, when you compare it to your expectations, how do you think that he did?
I really like Sam Howell, what he brings to the table. I love his unflappability, how he made just a stupid decision, and the offensive line was bad on that play too. I think it was Wiley that whiffed hard on a block. Leads to 7 before halftime, so that's not all Howell's fault. Wiley whiffed on the block too, but he shouldn't have fumbled that. And then he bounces back, gets him 3. I think that's a really important 3 points. I love the way he flings the ball around. I love his passing style. We talk about training camp reporting. One of the things we all said coming into the year was he needs to work on his decision making, and this goes all the way back to UNC. You talk to people in North Carolina, he doesn't get the ball out quickly enough. He's a little too indecisive. I had hoped to see some strides forward, but I also accept that we've bought a ticket to a year-long show here in a lot of ways, and to expect him to be that polished in week 1 is probably overly optimistic. I think he will improve on that as the season goes on. I wish he had taken fewer of those sacks, got the ball out quicker, had more of that internal clock, but I think the way he feels today will probably help him learn that, more quickly than you do it in front of tape or in a practice setting.
Yeah, no doubt. And there's also a couple of key plays that, you can do this in every game. But just to do it for this one, there's a couple plays where he has balls hit receivers in the hands. If they catch it, they're in better down and distance, better situations. They're rolling on that drive where Gibson fumbles. And they really kind of stopped themselves entirely in the first half. Second half's a different story, but first half they were really rolling. He threw for 169 yards in the first half and had a couple of drops mixed in there. So I actually think like there's a lot of positive to build on. The question is, will they build on it, or is this who they are, and how much of that was impacted by the fact that the opponent, while probably better than a lot of fans want to give them credit for, is still not good by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, we also didn't get a chance to see him fling it around late, which I came to Eric Bieniemy's defense on this. I think he correctly called a very conservative game down the stretch, understanding the opponent, understanding the field position and what was going on, and that 1 point was probably enough to just salt that away and win. That's not going to be the case every week, and if they're in the same situation in Denver this week, if they happen to be up 1 with 13 minutes left and they've got the ball, they are not going to be conservative. They'll understand they need to score more points to win. So I think that we got a taste of Sam Howell early. We did not get as much Sam Howell late. I think that was the correct decision for the moment and for the game. But everything I've seen of him in 2-minute drill style situations, minus that fumble, has been very, very positive so far. So I trust him in key situations and crunch time situations already. And that goes a long way in the locker room.
No doubt about it. Michael Phillips with us here on the Hoffman Show for his Monday visit. So what did you make of Bieniemy's day overall? I think there's some fair potential griping about the run-pass distribution in the first half and early third quarter as Sam's starting to struggle a little bit. But I also think that this team's just going to pass more, and they've got to convert some of this quick game stuff. But this is a living entity. This team, it's going to change each and every week depending on a multitude of factors. What'd you make of his day yesterday?
Yeah, I had no issues with the distribution. You pass to win in the NFL. This was an opportunity to get your young quarterback comfortable. He took advantage of that. You talk about when you stick with guys and when you go away from guys. And I'm not a good radio host yet, Craig, because I would like to acknowledge there are tons of shades of gray in this. I'm not going to pick a lane and go hard on this.
Michael, if we can't do shades of gray, then I don't have a show, and they haven't fired me yet. Give yourself a little bit of credit, or be prepared for the 4 to 7 slot on the Team 980.
I love it. Antonio Gibson fumbles. We don't hear from him again. It's over. Logan Thomas lets a few passes hit his hands, Kadarius Toney style. Keeps getting targeted. That's an in the flow situation where you've got to make the decision. Who are we sticking with? Who are we bailing on because they're not the hot hand? He made 2 different decisions, and I think the jury's very much still out on both of those decisions. But those are 2 guys I'm very, very curious to watch their workloads next week. Does Gibson get another chance to be a 50-50 ball carrier with Robinson, or has that ship largely sailed? And does Cole Turner start to get some more targets because he had a very nice catch in the game, or do they stick with Logan Thomas? One thing we know for sure, this is an offense that loves to throw it to the tight end. I don't think that's going to change in the next 7 days. I do view it as strictly a Logan Thomas versus Cole Turner discussion as opposed to some kind of, are they going to move the ball through other methods? I think they're sticking with the tight end.
Yeah, they will. I do think as the season goes, McLaurin will be more involved. Like there's definitely packages of plays. And I think we saw it perhaps most aptly the game he got hurt. I'm trying to remember who it was against. That game, whatever game that was in the preseason, when he gets hurt.
Ravens.
Yeah, that's right. It was the Ravens game. And he had a ton of catches. And then all of a sudden he goes out and they just plug Jahan in, and Jahan goes nuts in that game. He had like 7 catches and a half or something ridiculous. But I do think Terry will get a little bit more involved. I do have a pin in kind of the fact that he only had 4 targets, but also, acknowledging that as much as they say, oh, it's Arizona, we're not taking it lightly. I don't think they unloaded the full arsenal because it was Arizona. It is week 1 and it's a long season. But I do think the Logan Thomas question is a real one of, was that a matter of rust and he's actually the guy we saw early in training camp, or was training camp a facade and they really did make a huge mistake not upgrading at tight end during the offseason?
Yeah, and I think they had so many other needs. I was a big believer this offseason that the tight end was not the place to spend your free agency money or your draft capital. I just think you had enough good in-house options. And I do think Cole Turner will be a good in-house option if Logan Thomas isn't what you need him to be. He's a guy who has earned the benefit of the doubt, I believe, over time, earned the ability to get more touches on Sunday and earn the ability to get more touches down the line. On the Terry thing, I have not seen the coach's tape yet. I don't know if it's out yet. It's usually not out at this point after the game. But it seemed to me like they did dial up a number of deep shots to Terry early that Sam did not pull the trigger on, that Howell did not pull the trigger on. I got the sense he was probably making the correct decision. That is tough to tell from TV, so I'm not giving you a full rundown of, maybe there were opportunities. I think there were some opportunities to hit Diami deep. I think that's a very different sentence than you had an opportunity to hit Terry deep and you turned it down. I think Terry was double covered a lot. I think the Cardinals did make it a point to take him out of the game. And that was one of the things we were curious about coming in was, do you show Jahan Dotson and Curtis Samuel the respect of single covering Terry? I think they were shadowing Terry and letting Jahan eat. I think a lot of teams are going to make that decision, at least early in the year.
Right. That is probably the right decision, as great as Jahan is and as good as Curtis is. But Terry is the guy that makes the explosive stuff happen, and those are the plays that kill you in the NFL. Speaking of, the Commanders' defense did a good job of not giving up really any big plays. How much of that do you put on them, and what do you take out of their performance, knowing it was against Josh Dobbs and the Arizona Cardinals?
Yeah, I think you're trying to give a little credit to the Cardinals earlier in this segment, and I'm quite disappointed in you. That was a really bad football team. Obviously there's the tanking rumors and all that swirling around them. Of course, you're always playing to win on an NFL field, but I think ownership there has built a team capable of going 3-14 this year, and I get the sense that may be their objective there.
To be clear, roster-wise, they are not very good, but they're a professional outfit. They've got some really good players, and they play hard, and that's enough to make things interesting on any given Sunday.
Sure, and this is like the football-baseball discrepancy, right? Like in baseball, it's like I root for the Kansas City Royals. They are just a flaming bag of dog poo on any given day. It's baseball, though, so if they play a 3-game series against the Orioles or whoever's hot right now, they're going to win one of them. Like, statistically speaking, you can win in baseball 1 out of every 3 nights. In football, it's actually not totally dissimilar. Like, if they play Cardinals Commanders 10 times, what do you give the Cardinals? 2 of them?
Yeah, probably.
I think they could win. And the thing with statistics is, if you say the Commanders have an 80% chance of winning in today's game, people hear, the Commanders will win. Nah, 20% happens sometimes. Like, that's 1 out of every 5 times. And so people do not fully grasp that even sure thing games don't pan out. You can ask Kirk Cousins about that.
Wow. Nice little, wow, there goes my voice too. Holy crap, Michael. Are we in trouble here? Michael, are you going to have to do more radio? Please come back, voice. Oh, man.
I don't know what happened there. You had asked me, though, about the defense playing against the Cardinals, and I didn't answer the question even a little bit, so I'll give you a minute to bounce back here.
All right, thanks. Anthony, can you pop me down so I can get this cough out? Okay, thanks.
I'm going to let him rip on that. I felt like the defense really played well. Jack Del Rio got a game ball after the game, in addition to Josh Harris, who, of course, gets a game ball after every game now, as per Ron Rivera's new tradition, which I really hope he continues. I hope he does that after every single win this season. But it was a well-deserved game ball for Del Rio. He had his guys in the right places. They made good plays. They largely picked up where they left off last year, which is never a sure thing. New year, new approach. Everybody's got a year's worth of film on you. I have not revised any of my predictions on this defense. I thought they could be a really, really good unit, potentially top 5, top 7 in the league, statistically speaking. I still feel that way. I still think this is a really good group. Now, I watched the Cowboys, decimate the Giants last night. You're like, okay, maybe they're not at that level, but I think this is a really good defense. And I was excited to see the secondary. That was what I didn't quite get a sense for. They look good. Time to give Cam Curl a contract extension, time to lock him up. And then up front, obviously, Montez Sweat. If he plays like that in this contract year, man, that's going to be something special.
Yeah.
And by the way, I just gave a bunch of names, and I didn't even mention Jonathan Allen, who was just his normal, absolutely dominant self. Deron Payne, who was just taking care of business in there. I love how good those guys are every game. That's one of my favorite things about the coaches tape, just watching those guys play snaps. I don't actually get anything out of it as a journalist or a radio host. Nobody wants to hear me go snap by snap with Deron Payne. But dang, if it isn't a lot of fun to watch them play professional football.
No, they crush other grown men. And you're like, that was fun. Next snap. Watch him do it again. Oh, that was fun. Next snap. Okay. Well, nope. Here comes the punter. Guess we'll have to wait for the next series. One thing I did find interesting defensively is Forbes didn't start. He was the rotation piece. Like, now, when he came in, he played on the outside. But what did you make of St. Juste and Fuller getting the start with Forbes being the rotation guy? And I haven't seen final snap counts yet, but that's certainly how it started and seemed to be how it went most of the day.
I believe Fuller played 100% of the snaps, which you would have gotten an incorrect guess out of me coming into the game on that. I don't mind. And what was the discussion? Jahmyr Gibbs in Detroit the other day, or Drake London in Atlanta. Everybody seems to have these conversations with the young guys. They should have been used more. It's a long season, and I don't know if that's why the move was made. I do think he is ready in a lot of ways to go ahead and be out there on a regular basis. But I think you have to have a certain amount of respect for the leap here from the college season to the NFL season, and especially the 17-week NFL season. And I approve of bringing these guys in gradually, assuming you have the luxury of being able to do that. Now, I do think at a certain point you're going to be in tough games where you need your best guys and your best playmakers on the field. And the one thing we all want out of this defense is more takeaways, and he's the guy best positioned to give it to you. So I think this may have been more of a one-off than a consistent thing. But I do, in principle, generally like the idea of bringing young guys in slowly because it's a long season.
I don't disagree with that philosophy, but that is second to get your best guys on the field, and I'm not entirely sure he's not one of their two best corners already.
He can change the game in ways that the other guys can't, and sometimes you need a game to be changed.
That's true. Yesterday, they just needed it to go the full 60 because they were going to be better over that time. They wore down the Cardinals and ultimately got there. All right, what you got coming up on the show tomorrow, Michael? Something I've never gotten to ask you before.
I know, it's exciting. Day 2 of MP on the mic. I did I thought a solid 2 hours of radio today, and they told me I will have to do it again tomorrow.
Yeah, that's
apparently
the real
that is
pain in the butt.
Part of the business. Yeah.
When you do the weekends and the fill-ins, you're like, all right, that was a show. All right, cool. When's my next one? Thursday? Sweet.
Yeah.
This 5 days a week stuff. They make you do it 5 times. It's crazy.
You know, I'm going to go deep on the Commanders' offense. I think we'll devote Tuesdays to that. I'll be excited for Monday Night Football. I'm really fired up for this game, especially after watching what the Packers did to the Bears. I think there's going to be storylines galore coming out of this Monday Night Football, and we've got for the Richmond crowd, we've got the president of the local minor league baseball outfit, the Flying Squirrels. They're right in the middle of a playoff hunt. This is the final week of the season, and they are clinging to the last playoff spot. So a little pennant fever down here in Richmond.
Nice. Anytime you can utter, today on the show, we have the president of the Flying Squirrels. It's a good show. Michael Phillips, MP on the mic, is the show 10 to noon on 910 The Fan down in Richmond, which you can listen to on the free Odyssey app. Mike will be back with us next Monday. Until then, sir, have a great 4 more shows, because guess what? After you're done tomorrow, they're going to ask you to do it again on Wednesday.
Unbelievable. You guys are ridiculous. Good chatting with you, Craig. Catch you next Monday.
See you, man. The audacity of the Odyssey. All right, that's Michael Phillips, everybody, with us here on The Hoffman Show. Again, he'll be with us each and every Monday. We are thrilled that Mondays with Michael is back. All right, when we get back, it is time for Anthony and I to go around the NFL and see, how everyone else in the league did and check in on the rest of the league, and B, how we did with our picks. Can Anthony beat me in picks for the first time since week 1 of last season? That's next on The Hoffman Show.
It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app on a Victory Monday, where we will look back at the 6 players we were most interested in for the Commanders and Cardinals at 6 o'clock, our pick 6 at 6, and then coming up at 6:15, dive into some of the finer points of the game, and you'll hear from Ron Rivera, his press conference about 2.5 hours ago. We'll give you some of the most interesting things that the head coach said. Right now, though, Anthony, it is time to go around the NFL and take a look at how we did with our picks and, of course, talk about each and every game. You ready?
What you think, man? I was born ready. Let's get it.
All right, let's see.
Was that aggressive?
I was very aggressive.
All right.
That's fine. Panthers and Falcons. Falcons 24, Panthers 10. What a debut for Bijan Robinson. You want to see some explosiveness out of an NFL player, watch his catch and score. Also the debut for Bryce Young, not as great for him, just 146 yards, a touchdown, 2 picks. He's going to be real good, I'm fairly sure of it, but it is going to take a while because they do not have a lot around him down there in Carolina. Funniest thing that happened in this game is that Young threw his first ever career touchdown pass to Hayden Hurst, the tight end, who said afterwards on Twitter, "I blacked out and threw the ball into the stands." Luckily, they were able to get it and get it back to Bryce Young, but alas, 14 fourth quarter points from the Falcons leads to an easy Atlanta victory.
Very easy dub for the Falcons. I think there was a lot of talk about Bijan Robinson, but Tyler Algier low-key stole the show with 2 tuds on 15 carries for 75 yards. Definitely big outing for him. But what is the receiver's name? I'm blanking. Drake London, goose egg on the day. That was shocking. I guess when the
target?
run game, yes.
It's crazy. I mean, it's funny. Arthur Smith was asked about it afterwards, and he's like, Drake London doesn't care about targets. We care about wins. We're 1-0.
Fair. Okay.
Like, fair, but also you know, it goes down to allocation of resources. The best teams, their best players are the guys they draft high. They used a top 10 pick on that dude.
And Kyle Pitts.
And Kyle Pitts, who had 2 catches for 44 yards.
Exactly.
But, like, Kyle Pitts, was he taken by Arthur Smith, or was he taken by the previous regime? I think he was taken by, because he was a rookie last year, so it would have been.
Yeah. He would have taken him last year. Yeah.
Yeah. Or is he already in his 3rd year? Anyway.
He's in year 2.
Year 2. So, yeah, I mean, like, you take these guys high, like, I'm sure they're good blockers for their position, but sheesh. At some point, you got to get them the ball. Mm-hmm. But they scored 24. They won the game. It is what it is. They're 1-0. How about this? One of the 2 big stunners on the day. Browns 24, Bengals 3. Joe Burrow probably the worst game of his career that he finished. He didn't even technically finish it. He gets pulled late in the game because they're like, this is not going well. Never mind. He didn't have it. He threw for less than 100 yards in the game. Chubb 18 for 106. Watson's got only throws for 154, but also has a rushing touchdown. Didn't see this one coming.
What I will tell you, Craig, I think this was a consistent theme around the NFL. But the pressure that the Browns put on Joe Burrow and the Bengals, I'm talking about they were in his face.
Myles Garrett is so good at football.
Did you see the clip on Twitter where he's like acting as if he's dribbling a basketball between his legs and then he Euro step past the guard? I'm like, yo, he is playing with these dudes out there. But the sack total, I would love to see what the sack total around the entire National Football was for yesterday's, because so many teams had like 5 sacks, 6 sacks, 7. It's crazy how many times the quarterback got sacked yesterday, and that was a consistent theme. And why Joe Burrow threw for under 100 yards for the first time in his career.
It's crazy. Defenses are ahead of offenses this time of year. That just is kind of par for the course. Teams are playing less in the preseason.
So maybe some of the offenses and some of the timing and things like that is rusty. Some of the communication is not as crisp along offensive lines. I don't know what it is. Teams are also passing more, so obviously there's more opportunities. But shoot, man, 24-3, yikes! That's one of two big upsets on the day. We'll get to the other one in just a moment. Jags and Colts, though, went pretty much according to plan. Anthony Richardson shows some incredible upside. Even, I'll say, Anthony, even though in the loss, the rushing touchdown he has, where he spikes the ball and does a 360, that's the most athletic celebration I've ever seen in my whole life.
Really?
He just he's so explosive that he jumps and does a 360 and spikes the ball and makes it look so easy, and he just flies through the air, and you're like, what a freak athlete. Not to mention the burst that he has on the actual play and some of the throws he makes. But ultimately, Trevor Lawrence, people have been saying this for a while now, but the prince that was promised, he is for real. 241, 2 touchdowns, a pick. And Calvin Ridley, every bit as good as we thought he would be after missing the year for gambling last year. 8 catches, 101 yards, and a touchdown. He's going to be a problem this year in Jacksonville.
Yes, he is. And they just have so many weapons, man. So many weapons. But the Colts, they were in it. They were right there. I will say Deion Jackson putting the ball on the ground 2 times, not once, twice. Really hurt, the Colts' chances. I think with Anthony Richardson, you're going to have to depend on the run game to an extent. If you can't run the ball, then you're putting everything on the rookie's shoulders. And I think it was just a little bit too much for him, especially against a division rival. But Z did have a big play in the game.
Yeah, I want to talk about that in a second. But on your running point real quick before I lose the thought. Jonathan Taylor is apparently ready to pass his physical as soon as today. Ooh. Too bad they put him on IR and he can't play for another 3 weeks. Good job, Colts. Fantastic franchise management. You guys are killing it. That play was crazy. So if you missed this yesterday, Lawrence gets strip sacked. Ball goes flying forward. Jags receiver picks it up and is like, oh, I got the ball. Like one of those, oh, it's incomplete, but I picked it up. But it wasn't incomplete. It was a live ball. It was a fumble. And instead of tackling him, our guy, Syracuse smart Zaire Franklin, comes in and punches it out. And the receiver's like, yo, what's wrong with you? And Z's like, live ball, bro. DeForest Buckner, who had the initial strip sack, picks it up, runs it in for a touchdown. One of the crazier plays you'll ever see in the NFL.
That was crazy.
Did you talk to him about it?
I did. And to be honest, he didn't even, he thought the play sort of kind of was dead as well. And he was just coming up to just be like...
So you're just being goofy.
Yeah, pretty much.
And
it worked out in his favor, though.
Stick to the story, bro.
Exactly.
No, I'm just the smartest player in the league. Always ready. As for the other big upset, Bucks 20, Vikings 17. Cousins throws for 344. JJ 9 for 150. And the defense holds to 20. It's not even a bad defensive performance. But they only score 17 despite all of that production. I didn't watch a ton of this game, Anthony. I saw a couple of highlights afterwards. How do you get that much production in the passing game and you only score 17 points? It's brutal.
Turnovers. Yeah. I was just so shocked that the Bucs managed to pull this one off. I'm still in disbelief, to be honest. JJ, he did his thing. Jordan Addison showed up.
But Kirk had a pick and 2 fumbles.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to, winning the turnover battle. And, again, I think I said this yesterday, on Friday when we talked about it. The Bucs defense is still no slouch, and their defense came up huge for them, and they were ultimately able to, get the dub.
Yeah, you make plays like that. You can get 173 yards from Baker Mayfield. 2 touchdowns and no picks, though. And then, 17 for 39. 2.3 average for your starting running back, and you win the game. Mm-hmm. And Mike Evans' guy, by the way. You might want to cover him. Still pretty good. Titans and Saints. First win for Derek Carr in New Orleans, 16-15. It was ugly, but they did it. Carr, 305 through the air. Olave, 8 for 112. Tennessee, man, it's going to be a slog for them offensively. But it's also important to remember, it's not just because the Titans are not the most explosive offense in the world. This Tennessee defense is pretty good, and they showed up yesterday for sure.
Yeah, they did. Derrick Henry, I was expecting him to go out and do his thing. Didn't really do too much, Craig. Very upset, but
15 for 63.
I like what D-Hop did, you know. Also, I just need more out of Ryan Tannehill. I want the Titans to be good, but I just don't. It might not be their year. After all I said, yeah.
You think?
It might not be their year.
By the way, we forgot to. We're rusty, Anthony. Have you been keeping track of wins and losses here?
I am keeping track.
Okay, so Panthers, Falcons, we were both on Atlanta.
Yep.
Bengals, Browns, we split. You took the Browns.
Yep.
All right, so that's one up for you. Jags, Colts, I got that game back. You took the Colts. I took the Jags. Bucks, Vikings, we both miss.
Yep.
Did we go 1-2-3 Vikings on that? Or is that a different game? I think that was
no.
I think
we
that was
did
the Baltimore
go 1-2-3, and oh no, it was a Baltimore game. Yep, you're right.
All right, so that would have been embarrassing. That should have been like a double loss, but it's not. We just get a regular loss. And then Titans, Saints, where were we?
You took the Saints, and I took the Titans.
So I'm one up as we get to the San Francisco-Pittsburgh game.
Yes, sir. And I even it right back up, baby.
Yes, you do. My Super Bowl champions, who I decided for some stupid reason not to pick in week one, just absolutely demolish the Steelers. At one point, the total yardage in this game was 199-1. McCaffrey, 22 for 152, including a highlight reel 65-yard touchdown run where he gets incredible downfield blocking from Brandon Ayuk and Ray McCloud. Ayuk has 2 touchdowns as well, 129 yards receiving on 8 catches. And Pittsburgh just never could get it going offensively. Just thoroughly dominant. Nick Bosa proves his worth. Like, he's PFF's highest graded player yesterday, the day after he becomes the highest paid defensive player in the history of the NFL.
Craig, the Steelers' defense came into play, sort of, kind of.
Kind of.
But the offense, oh, my God. Matt Canada, I think he has to go, Craig. There was a point in the game where the Niners had 199 yards and the Steelers had 1 net yard, Craig. 1.
I know. I literally just said that.
It's still crazy. And what I'll say is, Matt Canada, he's got to do better. They've never had a game that he's been the OC where they've had over 400 yards. And
that's crazy because he's been there multiple years.
He's been there too many years. He's been there over 70-something games, so it's crazy. Offense got to do better.
That is a long time to be that mediocre. We both got the Commanders right, so tack that up for one of
yes, sir.
Or one each on us. Ravens and Texans, we both got this one right as well. Not that hard. Unfortunately, the biggest story from this game is J.K. Dobbins done for the year, torn Achilles. Brutal. He scored early in the game and then goes out a little bit later with a torn Achilles. But ultimately, the Ravens take a 7-6 halftime lead, pull it out in the third quarter, score 15 unanswered, win it 25-9. C.J. Stroud, 242 in his debut, but didn't get into double digits. Not a lot more to talk about there. Packers and Bears. How about Green Bay with Jordan Love? Did they just find the next guy? Did they actually do it again? 245, 3 touchdowns, no picks for Love. Heck of a day for Aaron Jones as well. Big day on the ground. Big day as a receiver as well. 2 catches, 86 yards, and a touchdown. Does the math, divide by 2. That is a 43-yard average on his 2 catches. Dude, Love looks like a Rodgers imitation, and not a bad one. Like, even the way he moves around the pocket, like, it's clear he went to Aaron Rodgers QB school. Kind of the click the heels as you throw stuff. Like, I'm a little scared that Jordan Love might be really good.
I would love to see how he does in October and November. I don't want to jump on the hype train too fast. Just because
it is still the Bears, and they still lack a lot of talent.
Yeah.
I'm a little disappointed in their offense, but they lack talent for sure.
But it's also the fact that, Jordan Love didn't have his number 1 guy, Christian Watson. He was out.
And they still put up 38.
Exactly. So I think it's something to definitely, marvel at, but at the same token, I don't want to get too high up on it. I think he had a fantastic game, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do without Aaron Jones because he tweaked his hamstring.
He did. That LaFleur guy can coach a little bit, though.
Yeah, he can.
He gets forgotten in the McVay, McDaniel, obviously Kyle. Like, when Jordan Rodriguez did her series this summer, the play callers, like, there was a fourth guy, and it was Matt LaFleur. And he's in that group for a reason. Like, that dude can coach it up. And I'd imagine there's some level of freedom that he enjoys of having a little bit more say without Rodgers there, that he can really get into Love. Not like get into him, like yell at him, but like get in there and like, hey, man, let's see what you got, and really coach him up. And so far, so good through one game. His second career start is a banger for Jordan Love. Unfortunately, I think I picked the Bears in that game.
We both did.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well,
we both lost.
That's nice. Raiders and Broncos, 17-16. Vegas able to pull this thing out in the fourth quarter. Jimmy G, 200 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jacoby Myers had 2 touchdowns as well. Scary, scary, scary situation with him later in this game when he got knocked out, had the fencing position, ultimately able to walk off with the help of trainers. No cart, but clearly he's going to be in the concussion protocol and should be out for, I would hope, at least a week, if not longer, considering how scary that was. But not an ideal start for Russell Wilson and Sean Payton's marriage, only putting up 16 points at home in their debut before hosting Washington next week.
Yeah, that wasn't a good showing for the Broncos. We actually both chose the Broncos to go out there, start this Sean Payton era off right. And they stunk it up a little bit. But Jimmy G, he made some clutch throws and plays down the stretch of the game. So I guess Jimmy G's he's letting us know he's still got a little left in the tank.
He wins football games, man. He's 20 of 26 for 200. You want to know who the leading receiver was for the Denver Broncos?
For the Denver Broncos. Dang, I can't even think of a receiver.
Well, it wasn't a receiver. It was a running back. The once great Washington running back, Samaje Perine.
Wow. How many
Actually,
yards?
it was never great in Washington. He was pretty darn good in Cincinnati, though, as a backup.
Yeah, he was.
4 for 37 on the rushing there.
Wow.
Or on the receiving, I should say. The leader in receptions was Adam Troutman. And Jerry Jeudy left this game early, so he might be out for this week as well. So we'll see as obviously Washington gets ready to go to Denver. Eagles and Patriots. This game was weird. Eagles up 16-0 after the first quarter. Patriots bounce back to make it a 2-point game at halftime. Patriots had chances late in this one, but ultimately could not convert. It's one of those games where I have no idea what the Patriots are. I kind of feel like if the Eagles had to go make plays, they would have. But also, fluky stuff like Jalen Hurts, he's going to seal the game as a runner, and he gets the ball crushed out. Big fumble by him late. That's not good. I do think that, maybe the Eagles are going to take a little bit of time to get going here with their new coordinators. But ultimately, I think the Patriots are kind of a mediocre mid-level football team that gave a good football team a good day on opening day, or a good game on opening day, and there's not really much more to it than that.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I primarily watched the second half of this game because I had to drive home and stuff like that. But this was probably one of the best games that I've watched just because of, how up and down it was. I thought the Eagles were about to put it away. Next thing you know, the Patriots got the ball back and they stink it up, and the Eagles get the ball. So it was a whole bunch of back and forth. But, the Eagles barely escaped, because if he gets that toe down, who's to say Mac Jones doesn't come up with a clutch TD? But, they got lucky, I would say. They escaped with one.
They escaped with one, but a win is a win is a win is a win, as I said to start the show for the Commanders. Game of the day, no doubt, Dolphins-Chargers.
Yep.
This goes in the Hoffman column. 36-34, Dolphins pull it out. Tua, 466, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. That's going to help me, I think, beat you in fantasy too, sir.
Sir, I don't even think you needed all of that, to be honest. I got destroyed by you today, this week. I think I'm down 50 right now. I think I have 89 points, and you have 139. But, Tua definitely lit the Chargers up. But we already knew this was going to be a shootout. It was going to be a back and forth. Who was going to be able to, get a stop when it mattered. And,
the answer was no one. The Dolphins got the ball less.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's pretty much how that ultimately went down. I guess the Dolphins do get a stop at the end, but I mean, like, there are times when I play Madden and I'm just like, you get mad and you just like, screw it. And you line up and you go to your favorite play and you throw it to, for me, if I'm playing with the Commanders, like, it's all right, I'm just going to get Terry isolated one-on-one and we're going to score a touchdown because I'm mad. And it feels like the Dolphins can do that in the actual NFL, where Mike McDaniels just goes, bleep this, do the Tyreek touchdown play. And then Tyreek kills in the end zone. It's insane. Like, his ability to just sun other NFL athletes it's 11 for 215 and 2 touchdowns. They know he's going to get the ball, and there's nothing you can do about it unless you play 80 yards off him. Yeah. He's that fast. Nuts.
I'm not going to lie. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, they sort of kind of remind me of LeBron James and D Wade in Miami. It is scary.
Yeah.
It is scary because either one of those players can just go off and have one of those. We're going to see a game where Jalen Waddle has, 11 for 180 or,
Of course.
We're going to see it. So,
I mean, even yesterday, it wasn't like he was quiet. He had 4 for 78.
Exactly. And a huge play at the end of the first half.
Nuts. They only ran it 20 times in the game. He threw it 45. 36-34 is the victory. And then, of course, I just closed out of the of the scoreboard. Whoopsie daisies.
There's 2 more games.
Yeah, there are. Rams, they won. They put up 30 on the Seahawks. 30-13 is the final. Matthew Stafford, 334. Welcome back to him. And this game was closer than that final score. Like, this was close in the fourth quarter, and the Rams are able to pull away. And in part to a big, gutsy 4th down call by Sean McVay to go for it instead of going for a field goal. They get a touchdown, and the play call is like the fake fullback. It's kind of a fake jet sweep, pitch out to the halfback situation, and they're able to score on it. Just really good stuff. And it's exactly what I said on Friday, man. Like, do not count out the Rams as a walkover this year. Sean is too good. Stafford is too good. They're going to find ways to score points. The question is, can they stay healthy? And, can they hopefully find some help along the way with Cooper Kupp eventually coming back?
Yeah. The Seahawks. We both chose the Seahawks to go out there. We thought they were going to be able to push over the Rams, but
I didn't think it'd be a pushover.
What is his name? Puka Nuwaka, the receiver for the Rams, 10%. Greg,
they just find guys, man.
Man, he was killing. Tutu Atwell was killing. I'm like, who are these dudes? Like,
2 dudes who most people have never heard of, 119 yards apiece.
They were destroying the Seahawks, and I couldn't believe it because I think the Seahawks have some good D-backs, and they were just having their way. And Matt Stafford also reminded everybody, like, who he is. Remember, 2 years ago, when they were in the Super Bowl, he was healthy. So,
yeah.
I'm actually excited to see how the Rams are actually going to play. Granted, you still got to wait a little bit for Cooper Kupp, but when he gets back, watch out for them boys.
Speaking of the boys.
Oh, man.
Speaking of the boys. 40-0. Did you watch this game much?
I watched it in full.
I did not. I was like, I got to put something non-football on. We were watching something else. We finished that, and I was like, all right, I should watch this game for work purposes. Flip it back on. I was like, never mind. We do not have to watch this game. I have stared at the screen enough today. This is a blowout. 16-0 at the end of the first. 26-0 at halftime. Just more math. 33-0 at the end of 3 quarters. A 40-0 final in which the Cowboys really didn't have to do that much offensively because the Giants just kept giving them the football. Dak Prescott, only 143 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. Tony Pollard, 14 carries, 70 yards, does score 2 touchdowns. CeeDee Lamb, a nice day, 4 for 77. But the Giants, not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 fumbles. They lost only 1 of them, which is crazy. But just a disaster day. 2 picks for Daniel Jones. And 40-0 is the final score. What are you going to say? They lost 40-0.
Craig, if you thought the Commanders' protection of Sam Howell was bad, oh my goodness. Dallas had their way yesterday against the Giants. Like it was actually insane. I'm talking about Myles Garrett to the quarterback in the second, Micah Parsons to the quarterback. Just kept happening over and over again. And then the backups was doing the same thing. I'm just like, good gracious.
Yeah, the Giants, I don't think are that bad. I don't think the Cowboys are that good, but they certainly were that bad and that good last night, which is how you wind up with that scoreboard. All right, the scoreboard for us, Anthony. Count them up. What do we got?
We are both knotted at 7-7, Craig.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Yikes. And then did we pick Monday night yet?
Yes, we did.
And are we on opposite sides?
Yes, we are.
I've got the Jets.
You have the Bills. Don't come over here now.
Okay, good.
Don't come over here now.
Thank God. I was
you
like,
said thank God.
Yeah, I was like, why do I feel like I picked the Jets? I don't like that. I want the Bills. Okay. All right, so I got the Bills tonight. You got the Jets, and then we'll see. We'll revisit tomorrow, and then obviously we'll pick the next slate of games on Friday. We'll try to also get a Thursday night pick in this week as well. We missed that last week. All right, that's around the NFL. That'll be 5:30 on Mondays all season long. At 6 o'clock on Mondays all season long. It'll be the Pick 6 at 6. That is next on the Team 980.
show here on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app with the very well-dressed producer Anthony Haney there in his polo. When was the last time I wore a collared shirt to work?
Probably never.
I wouldn't say never. I think there had to be like something sometime where like there was a boss coming in or
struggling.
Or I don't know. I had to do some TV, maybe. It's not often.
Yeah, it's not often. But the thing is, I have this polo on because I have to go to work before I come here.
Right, to your other job.
Yeah.
Your job where you live.
Yeah, where I have to wear a polo,
Yeah.
Or I could, wear a button-up, but I'd rather not do that.
No, definitely not. Where I've been the last couple of days?
In the crib, on your couch, sitting down.
Nowhere. Absolutely nowhere. Tomorrow, I would like to discuss Madden because I've played a lot of it now. Whether we like franchise mode or not, more of a superstar mode type of person.
You've been playing, Craig?
I've been playing. What else am I going to do?
Would you like to play against me is the question.
Yes.
Ooh,
Other than
okay.
I think I gotta like buy the EA online stuff.
Okay.
Which
that's
is another expense. These games are expensive, bro.
Yeah,
I hadn't played since they were like $50 and they were expensive back in the day. Now it's like, oh yeah, it's $90. I'm like,
yeah, it definitely is a little expensive. I don't look forward to paying. What do I pay? $15 a month for my No, it's a year actually. I'm tripping. It might be $15 a month. I don't know. I know I pay for online access.
Yeah, so I'll take a look at the budget, and we'll figure it out because we definitely could play. We could definitely stream it on the YouTube channel.
That's gonna be a lot of fun, Craig.
It would definitely be fun. But so far I'm let's do pick six and we'll put down like Madden talk on the rundown for tomorrow.
All right, bet.
As for right now, though, it is time to look back at the 6 players that I thought were most intriguing to follow on Friday, and we're going to do this every Monday. So Friday, we will pick 6 players that we're following during the game, and it's not necessarily like the 6 most important players, but it's 6 players that are going to tell us something about the game, about the season, about whatever it is, and then we'll see how they did on Monday. So that's the setup. Here we go. It is time for our pick 6.
That's a fine.
I even gave you so much extra time in the setup.
That is a huge fine.
That is, Anthony, we've been sitting on 95 points.
We are on 90 too. I just put it over.
On 95 for like weeks. We hadn't had a fine on this show in literally weeks. And now on such an easy thing, you're totally botching the setup. And I can't save you. Because I'm at home. I don't have the ability to save you at home. So that's a 10-point fine. Anthony and I will have to divvy up on the board who's buying how much percent of lunch. And when I'm eventually over COVID and can leave my house, Anthony and I are going to get to go to lunch. In the meantime, here's our pick 6.
The 6 biggest Commander storylines.
It is caught!
Delivered at 6 o'clock sharp. It's the Pick 6 at 6.
I'm going to be their biggest and harshest critic, but I'm also their #1 fan.
All righty. Sam Howell is number 1. He is the guy who, obviously, we had our most attention on. And I think he had an extremely mixed bag. There was some really good play from Sam Howell where he got into a rhythm and was slinging it all over the place, putting balls on guys, getting the ball out on time. And then he kind of hit the skids in the second half where he's not really seeing things well. There's not a lot of production in the second half. He had 169 yards at halftime. He only finished with slightly over 200 on the day. It's like a 40-yard half. Yikes, bro. But even in that first half, takes a couple of sacks. Obviously, the really, really, really bad fumble. And so there's just a bunch of young guy stuff. And I think in many ways, I am happy that he had that game because it should be a leveling of expectations for everyone, himself included, not just the outside noise, but if he was like, man, I think I'm doing really well, I'm going to go crush this. No, man, it's really hard.
And it's good to like get that feeling of, okay, wow, okay, yeah, this isn't just like I had a bad drive or two in the preseason and then I scored and then they took me out, but I've got it all figured out now. And even if that's at a subconscious level, that's just how it is, because you always just think like, oh, okay, like I figured it out. There is no figuring out quarterback in the NFL until you reach like Brady, Rodgers, at the end of their careers type of levels where you just know all the answers to the test all the time. And even those guys make mistakes. So for Howell, there's going to be up and down. He's going to be a playmaker. I think he's got intangible stuff and unteachable stuff that is worth the investment in him. The red zone stuff is spectacular. And you need to be a playmaker down there. You need to understand how to create something out of nothing, because defenses lock up and there's not a lot of space to operate. So if you can start moving around a little bit and running a little bit, you start getting into scramble mode and defenses have to try to do more than their base. And Howell took advantage of that multiple times, obviously, for the 2 touchdowns on the day. I think something like the sack fumble, touchdown, recovery for Arizona, that's a pretty easy lesson. Hey, man, you got to protect the ball better. You got to eat it if you sense pressure. You can't try to get out of every play, certainly not when it's, 3rd down at the end of the half and you're just going to punt. Just be happy, be okay punting. Don't be happy, but be okay punting. But Sam Howell, overall, a mixed bag of a day. And I think a lot of really good tape to grow off of moving forward into week 2 against Denver. All right, number 2. That was number 1, Jahan Dotson. Dotson, a pretty productive day, and the kind of day that I think he's going to have a lot of, I would say this is the lower end, though. 5 catches, 40 yards, 7 targets. But he's going to be the guy in key situations that they go to. He's going to be the guy that is trusted to win on 3rd down situations, to be open on big plays. Obviously, Terry has a big 3rd down on one of his big catches of the day, and I think McLaurin is going to be involved more as we go. But Dotson's, 7 is a low number of targets for him, and I think he's going to get there pretty regularly. I think, 10, 12 is going to be the higher number. And most often he'll probably be in the 7 to 9 range. But I think you see how he's going to be used and how good he is at getting the ball in space, getting open, being reliable when the ball's thrown to him. Dotson, I think, a good day and kind of a good tempo set for the season. On to number 3. Jamin Davis, Cody Barton. I put them together, cheated a little bit, but that linebacker position. Arizona's not that good offensively, obviously, but they do test your linebackers, and I thought these guys were up to the test. There's one big play that they kind of gave up, and I don't even know that it was actually on Jamin on that wheel route up the sideline. That might have been on Forbes behind him, because there was a player coming into the flat, and Jamin was the flat player there. Obviously, if someone goes upfield and there's no one in the flat, you should carry them, because there's likely then things happening behind you, and you're kind of in a 2-for-1 situation where Forbes is trying to not give up anything over the top, and thus that rail route going up the sideline is available. So you'd like Jamin to carry that if he doesn't have a responsibility in front of him, but I think he did. So it's just kind of a good play design by Arizona. Outside of that, no big explosive plays. There was the one run play that got out. That's more on Andre Jones Jr. for keeping or not setting the edge properly and filtering things the right place. But overall, Cody Barton, I think, had a fine enough game. And Jamin Davis showed what he can do, getting all over the field, using his speed. He's their 2nd leading tackler. He's got 6 on the day behind Cam Curl's 10. And I also think again, a reminder that Curl's going to spend a ton of time in the box. I haven't seen the snap counts yet, but Curl, I should say Percy Butler was out there a lot more than I thought he would be, which pushed Curl into the box a lot. I think eventually they'll want to get Quan Martin there, and we'll talk about Quan in a second. And that was why they drafted him, to take some of those box reps off of Cam Curl. But right now, he's going to be living in the box, and he is living well. 10 tackles on the day for Curl to supplement the job well enough done by Davis and Barton, which brings us to
number 4,
Quan Martin. So Quan was on this list because I wanted to see how they would use him, and the answer was not very much. I don't think he played a snap on defense. they can say all they want about his preseason that he had a couple of high-profile mistakes, but he's actually coming along great. Snap counts don't lie. He's not ready for the big time yet, and I think they've feel comfortable. Not feel comfortable with that. Obviously, they want him to be, but they acknowledge that by not playing him. Doesn't mean it won't change by week 4, week 6, week 8, week 10, whatever. He's going to have to play at some point this year. But the good news is they have a lot of depth. And over the course of time, he's going to be able to carve out a role probably more as a true nickel corner than anything else. But, with Percy Butler having such a fantastic preseason, wanting to get him on the field, with the 3 corners all playing well and currently healthy, with Cam Curl and Derek Forrest being who they are as safeties, there's just not a lot of space. And so he's going to have to bust his butt on special teams. He unfortunately had a special teams penalty. If I'm remembering correctly, I feel like it wasn't a good call. There was a lot of bad calls in this game. Officiating was rough yesterday. The OPI on John Bates is one of the worst calls I've ever seen in my life. Just a completely phantom call. But Quan, he's not going to make this list again for a while, because the point was I wanted to see what kind of snap usage he got defensively, and the answer was none, and that says everything that needs to be said about that. On to
number 5.
Sadiq Charles. Sadiq had an all right day. The offensive line in general struggled. There was the sack that I believe he gave up because Brian Robinson tripped him. So a little bit of poor execution there, the kind of thing that you do wonder if he was healthier in the preseason and didn't miss training camp. Is that a play they practiced with Chris Paul? And, Chris Paul's in a slightly different place, and Ryan Robinson, whatever, the chemistry between those two needed to be on that play. But if I'm remembering correctly, it might have been Gates. Point is, Sadiq was okay. Nothing really stood out. The screen game wasn't super great, except for the one that they get to Gibson at the end, where he did 100%, speaking of the bad refereeing, get that first down. An unbelievable missed challenge by Rivera. Not that, Ron did the right thing. The referees botched it. But I think solid play. I think the more interesting thing was when Sam Cosmi came out. Ricky Stromberg got out there and did a good job for a couple of snaps, and he was the swing guard. So that's interesting, as opposed to Chris Paul going in and playing right guard or mixing it up any other way. But good enough day for Sadiq. And then last but not least,
number 6.
Chris Rodriguez. He has the one carry as the up back, gets the first down. Good job. I don't think he had many more snaps beyond that. Certainly not, didn't get a ton of love as a running back. And I just think that you need to find him. I guess he had 3 carries for 7 yards. I think that's kind of right. I expect him to get 3 to 5 per game. And if he gets going, maybe then you up that a little bit. But I also wonder, is Robinson at 19 with Gibson at 3, how this is going to be, or just because Gibson fumbled? And I tend to think it's going to be because of the fumble, and we're going to see how Gibson responds in practice and what Bieniemy thinks of that, and that will determine how much he plays going forward. If Gibson is limited to this third down role because they don't trust him on first and second down and to be in between the tackles and be kind of a complete back, I think Rodriguez's number could go up. So he is someone certainly that we're going to be watching as the season goes. But, kind of canary in the coal mine style, Chris Rodriguez kind of in the role that we thought he would be, despite leading the NFL in rushing during the preseason. That is our pick 6, how the 6 guys that we had an eye on did. And now, Anthony, we have an awkward amount of time. Pew, 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 pew. Maybe we just talk about the officiating for a hot second.
Yeah, we can definitely talk. I think also, well, I'm more curious what your opinion is, because we haven't really touched on it too much. It was mentioned when you were talking to Michael, but Antonio Gibson fumbling.
Yeah.
I don't think people have made a big deal of it. My thing is, 2 years ago, he, led the NFL with 6 fumbles. Last year, I think he only fumbled it once or twice. And then this year,
wasn't an issue last year.
Exactly. And then this year he starts first game in the red zone, and
it's a bad fumble.
Yes, bad fumble.
I mean, there's no good fumbles, but red zone fumbles are killer. Like when you just give up points. If you just when you could kneel the ball down and then kick a field goal, and you have an outcome that's worse than that attempt, that is a particularly bad fumble, and that's what it was for Gibson. But it's not like guys are more careful or more careless at any point. It just sometimes it happens. I mean, that defensive, I think it was a linebacker actually, made a great play to dive in and hit the ball and to be able to punch from that angle. Like, unless Gibson has got it like locked as he's running forward and with two hands, and like the hand is actually probably not even in the right place. It's kind of the perfect window to punch it. And in some ways it's bad luck. Although you do wish that it was tighter to your body, obviously, and not off your body where that hand can get in the first place. So there is some ball security stuff that I think he needs to be reminded of. And certainly that's a reminder. But what I would say is, important is that they don't give up on him too quick. He's too good. He's too talented. He's too skilled. He's too potent to be relegated to just a third down back. Like, I think that's a miss. Robinson's great, but Gibson's really good. He was a 1,000-yard rusher not that long ago. And so I think they should stick to the plan. If it becomes if he does it again, then that's a different story. But, he had I think a fumble in the preseason last year, and then that was a huge talking point, and Robinson then obviously has the tragic accident where he gets shot, or the tragic incident where he's shot, and they have to go to Gibson, and he performs well. So he proved he can do it, and maybe it's just, it's a one-off, but yeah, it's not great. But one of those things that in a win you go, all right, hey, we made the mistake in a win. Now let's not make it again so it doesn't cost us a win.
Yeah, I only really wanted to talk about it because ironically 2 years ago when we played the Chargers week 1, he also fumbled, and it was a sort of kind of similar game. I think the Chargers, the same exact score, 20-16 when we played the Chargers, but we fumbled in our own territory and they end up scoring. So yeah, just wanted to pick your brain on that. And then the officiating was I don't know what they were seeing out there. The OPI was
I'm used to really bad officiating. I hate to say this, but it's true, and any women's sports fan listening knows that this is true. It is particularly bad in women's sports because the payment is not as high as in men's sports, and so most referees are bad because it's a really hard job. It's they're actually really good. It's just your percent of it's like a baseball player, right? You hit 300, you go to the Hall of Fame. It's only being successful 30% of the time. Referees, it's not 30%, but if you get 95% of the calls right, you're an awesome ref. And then you go to a WNBA game or an NWSL game and you're like, okay, they're hitting about 85%. This is brutal. This is so bad. And it felt like that's the level of refereeing we got yesterday. It was awful. It was just there's just no way that was NFL caliber officiating yesterday where, yes, do NFL referees miss calls, but it's rare that you get phantom calls or stuff where it's so obvious on video that, hey, that was a first down. Yeah, you didn't have a shot down the line. You can see his, hit the point where he's down is where when his elbow goes down.
Mm-hmm.
His hand there's a clear shot of the ball. The ball's in that hand. It's on the 34-yard line. That's the first down marker.
Yep.
That's a first down. That's brutal, man.
We couldn't believe it in the booth yesterday. I was in the press box because it was so blatant on the TV screen. It's just he's for sure going to win this challenge, and we ended up not winning, and I just couldn't believe it. And then there was another play. Montez Sweat almost got completely undressed on I think it was an incomplete pass. But
I remember that play.
No,
late.
It wasn't an incomplete pass. They threw it to the running back in the flat, and I think Cam Curl came up and speared him. But it's just still how do you miss that?
Blatant misholding right in front of the officials. And one of those where Sweat puts his arms up too and draws attention to it. Yeah, there's stuff that gets missed both ways. There was one or two calls, I don't remember them right now, where I was like, man, Commanders got lucky on that one. So, it's not like it didn't go both ways in some particular instances. But, when we talk about Howell's performance, the sack fumble, I think, comes after the Bates OPI.
Yep.
And it's well, that's probably a different play call. It's certainly a different situation. And that should have been a first down. Washington should have been driving again in that first half. And instead, it's offensive pass interference for John Bates running a route and a linebacker checking him 6 yards down the field. That's illegal contact on the defense if it's anything. Mm-hmm. They called OPI.
And it looked like they were in cover 2, to be honest.
They were. Stupid. Really bizarre. All right, when we get back here on the Hoffman Show, a little bit of John Allen on the Junkies this morning, a little bit of Ron Rivera, some of the most interesting things said by the participants yesterday, and then real things real people said in real microphones to close out the show. We're rolling on a Monday here on the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. By the way, Anthony's rolling. Now, we started streaming on YouTube on the Team 980 over the summer, and we're almost at 500 subscribers already. And I think in football season, like the time it took us to get from 0 to 500, cut that in like a third, and we'll be from 500 to 1,000, and we're just gonna take off.
Looking forward to it, man. That's solid growth then.
Are you ready to be an internet superstar?
I think so. Are you ready?
Too late for that.
Oh, yeah. Yes, sir. Hey, look, that's what we love to hear, man.
Hey, my channel over at Craig Hoffman, if you're not subscribed there, you get a bunch of highlights of the show, highlights of Take Command as well, and some of the stuff that we might be doing, some digital exclusives eventually as well. That just steamrolled across 3,300 subscribers. So that the growth is starting to accelerate with football season there as well. So, late to the party. It's fine. Doors are still open. There's room. Jump on in. YouTube.com/@theteam980 to catch us each and every day. We do stream all 3 hours of the show. So if you, say, listen on your drive home and then want a little bit more, just go home, pop on your smart TV, open up the YouTube app, and you can put us on just like everyone else who's talking about sports in boxes on your television. So it's just you go to YouTube and do it there as opposed to whatever show you would watch otherwise, because we're talking about your teams, and that's what you want each and every afternoon. All right. Ron Rivera spoke 3 o'clock today. You'll be able to hear that weekly on Chris Russell's show here on the Team 980. We'll have Rivera live off the top of the show many weeks on Wednesdays, his 4 o'clock press conference. So you can look forward to that. Of course, we will have anything that breaks out of that press conference no matter what. The big question today, though, after Rivera got to watch the tape is, okay, well, what'd you think of your quarterback's performance? So, Ron, what did you make of Sam Howell?
It's one of those things where you're never as bad as you think and never as good as you think. There are some really good things that happened. There was some really good rhythm stuff that was on. And then there were some things that were just kind of like, ooh, why'd you do that? So I know he spent time this morning looking at the tape, sitting down with EB and Tavita and Kenny and going over those things and just kind of getting a little, corrections on those things.
And that's the thing. Like, it's going to be a process. It's not as bad as some people thought. It's not as, I don't know. I mean, it seems like the haters were out in mass, where it was like everyone thought he sucks all of a sudden. It's like, no, he's just young and he's going to learn, and there's going to be bumps along the way. If you were disappointed in Sam Howell, that says something about your expectations more than it does Sam Howell. But if you look at the performance in a vacuum, there's a lot of good stuff there. There's also some really consequential bad stuff, and cleaning that up is obviously imperative to winning games in the NFL. As for the sacks specifically, how did those go down? There were 6 of them, so a variety of reasons. Here's Rivera.
Well, pretty much what you talked about. There are a couple things that for us, we missed a protection. We thought something was going to happen, and because of that, we came off a switch too soon. And then we actually had one where we had a little foot traffic and one of our guys got tripped up. And then a couple times we probably should have gotten rid of the ball. And so it's a combination of things. It's all things that are correctable, all things that we should get better with, and we expect to get better with.
In terms of getting rid of the ball, obviously, I think that I felt that during the game. I was like, some of these he's holding the ball for a long time. There's got to be a way out, which is weird because normally his clock is so good. I mean, you think about the red zone stuff where he's able to get out and he scrambles and he makes a play, and you're like, oh, that's pretty special. He's clearly got a great feel for the game in a lot of respects. But our guy Mark Bullock, who does a great job breaking down the X's and O's on his Substack, obviously used to write for The Athletic, used to write for The Washington Post, now doing the Substack game. And Bullock did a good job in his breakdown today of Howell's performance, talking about how the interception, which seems like just a silly, unlucky play, is actually a bit on Howell for not getting the ball out in time. And it's one of those classic things you hear about college quarterbacks shifting to the NFL. In college, you can see the throw. You wait on it, you see it, you make it to an open receiver. In the NFL, you have to anticipate a little bit more because the windows close quicker, and obviously the pass rush is a little more heated. And Jahan on that play runs an out-up stop. So think of, your classic corner post kind of out and up, double move situation, except for as the safety starts to turn and run to stay on top of it, you just stop. And you're like 18, 20 yards down the field in the middle of a wide open zone. And if that ball gets delivered on time, you can catch the ball, turn and run probably. But that window is going to close quickly. And obviously the pass rush is going to be coming because that is a long developing route. To hit a double move and then be able to put on the brakes and get out of that break in time to get your head up and hands up, that's a 3-second situation for sure. And Sam waits until Jahan is coming open and stopping as opposed to anticipating, seeing that the window was going to be there. And that's the difference in getting the throw off and the pass rush getting home. And ultimately that pick happens, yes, due to bad luck, but also because he could have gotten it out earlier and the pass rush affects the throw. And ultimately that's what tips it, is a pass rusher in his face, where it would have been clean and had been released a half second earlier. So those are the margins in the NFL. Good reminder. And, if he hits that, again, they're trucking in that first half. They had a lot of stopping themselves, a lot of unforced errors, I would say, in that first half, from Gibson's fumble to, which is a bit of a forced error. It's a good play by Arizona. Howell's fumble is a total unforced error, and the interception, if you want to chalk it up to what I just described, is an unforced error because there's nothing that stopped him from getting the ball out that half second sooner with a little more anticipation outside of his own lack of experience and understanding of that particular play. The one thing, though, that is really tremendous from Howell that you do see is he just doesn't quit. And that drive at the end of the second quarter into the first half is Exhibit A, is as Exhibit A gets, as good as it gets of an example of just, I just made a boneheaded play. Now I'm going to go out and just drill throws. And he comes out in that 2-minute situation and absolutely lasers some balls. Phenomenal stuff. And it just goes to this like resilience that he has. And Ron talked about that today as well, how his quarterback, despite all the mistakes, was able to continuously bounce back.
Well, that's one of the resilience about him. I think it is really kind of a little bit of a trademark of his, how tough he is. He is a tough young man. He took a couple of big shots yesterday. And one of the things he's got to learn is you can't leave yourself exposed like he did. And he'll learn that, and hopefully he'll learn that quickly.
Yes. He's going to wake up today feeling very sore. And he's going to go, I don't think I want to do this again. Big win, obviously, yesterday for Washington, one you kind of got to have. And John Allen this morning on the Junkies said, week one always is a must win, but especially against Arizona. Here's the big fellow who had the game-winning sack on with the morning show.
Well, no, this is definitely a must win. Just got the fans back on board, sold out home opener. This was a good opportunity to, kick off the season right, get the fans into it for the rest of the season. So we looked at the game like we need this win. In the NFL, you never know how the season goes, so you can't take any team for granted. And I just kind of tried to remind the guys that, when we played the Steelers on Monday night in 2020, I'm pretty sure they weren't looking at us as a serious threat when they were 11-0, and we won. So, you just got to remind the guys that a lot of times, just because of what people say on the outside, that should have no impact on what you do on the field. So, luckily, we came out there and we made a lot of mistakes, but we did what we had to do to win the game. And at the end of the day, that's what's important.
So, Anthony, my question is, if they can go and beat Denver, what is the crowd going to be like week 3 if they're facing Buffalo and they've got a chance to go 3-0?
I mean, I wouldn't say the Raiders' defense is as good as, the Commanders. So I like our chances. So for us to be 2-0, I think a lot of people will come out for that week 3 game against Buffalo. I mean, Buffalo is as good as it gets in the NFL. Even if you don't want to necessarily see the Commanders and you want to see another good team in, the Bills, you still want to come out. And it might not just be Commanders fans. It might be, some Raven fans or I don't know. But I think it's going to be jam-packed either way. And,
it's already close to a sellout.
And their fans travel.
Yeah, and there's no doubt there's going to be a ton of Bills fans there because they travel and they've bought tickets a long time ago. And, that is what it is. Buffalo is going to be in any stadium in the country. But, man, if they can get
2-0, baby.
Especially if Buffalo wins its first 2, and obviously they've got New York tonight.
Yeah. Well, I don't need them to win tonight. They can go 1-1.
it's gonna be fire. And then obviously the next home game after that's the Thursday nighter, where they got Chicago coming to town. So it's gonna be that one was so important because now, like, even if you go beat Denver, let's say, and then you lose to the Bills, you lose to the Eagles, you come back and you're 2-2, going into Falcons, Giants, and then home against Philly. Like, they've got a chance to kind of be in it. That's why week 1 is so important because you're never, you bought yourself at least till week 4 of being within one game of 500, if not better than that. Obviously, you win week 2 and you're up 2 on that even mark for the year, and you know you don't have to be that far above it to make the playoffs, and that's just NFL history talking.
Quick question, Craig. Do you like trap games? Because I feel like
depends on which side of the trap I'm on. Am I the trapper or the trapped?
The trapper.
I mean, honestly, not really, because then you're the worst team. And so, you know, you might think like, we got him. It's a trap game. And the next thing you look up and it's like, nope, we just got curb stomped. We got trapped in a false sense of security.
Yeah.
So
I don't know, man.
Being the underdog is fine. If you've convinced yourself that it's a trap game for them, you're not in the right headspace. You need to be like, nobody believes in us. Not everyone's picking us because it's a trap game.
I mean, that's what I think of the week 3 game. But hey, we'll see.
We'll see. All right, Real Things is next. We got a couple of good ones, and then we will be done because that's how we end the show. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Wrapping up the Hoffman Show here on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And Anthony, let's go ahead and get to it. We got a ton of real things to play. So real things, real people said, into real microphones.
Real things.
We're not going to suck this year.
Real people.
5-11, not very good.
Said into real microphones.
The culture is actually damn good.
All right, because it was a football weekend, we didn't get to talk about the actual top story of the weekend. Coco Gauff wins the U.S. Open. Phenomenal match on Saturday afternoon, bouncing back after losing the first set to Aryna Sabalenka. Just a tremendous job by Gauff. Incredibly entertaining tennis. And afterwards, got some tears out of her pops, which is something that she said she had never seen before.
Today was the first time I've ever seen my dad cry. He doesn't want me to tell you all that, but he got caught in 4K. He thinks he's so hard, but it's not. So thank you guys. I mean, you believed in me from the beginning. I've been coming to this tournament. My dad took me to this tournament, sitting right there watching Venus and Serena compete. So it's really incredible to be on this stage.
He got caught in 4K is going to be a thing that people say now. Coco just started a meme for sure. Also, it's so funny too because they panned to Dad obviously in the crowd, and he's like, no. It's like, sorry, Dad. Nothing wrong with crying when your girl wins the U.S. Open.
Exactly, man.
Love that. Now, after the match, apparently whoever was DJing in the arena played I'm in Love with the Coco by OT Genesis. Coco Gauff, thoughts on that?
With the Coco.
No, I do not want them to play that because it does not mean my name. It means something else. So, no. But sometimes people in the crowd do say that, and I'm like, yeah, that's cute, but please, though. But yeah.
For those of you that are in the listening audience that don't know what I'm in Love with the Coco is referring to, Anthony, do you want to tell them or should I?
You can.
It's referring to cocaine.
Yes.
It's referring to cocaine. Cocaña. Not someone named Coco. Certainly not Coco Gauff. It is referring to cocaine.
I'm in love with the Coco.
Yeah, that's the song. And it's about cocaine.
Yes.
On the men's side of things, Daniil Medvedev ultimately wound up losing in the final to Novak Djokovic, the now 24-time Grand Slam champion. He got to that final by upsetting Carlos Alcaraz. Just a weird match from Alcaraz. Just never looked as sharp as he normally does for the number one seed. Djokovic back to being the number one player in the world now, by the way, with the win. But Medvedev talking to the U.S. Open crowd in New York after beating Alcaraz on Friday.
You love the crowd, whether they're for you or against you. It took you a little while to close it out. What does it mean to you when you finally finish this match?
Well, first of all, I have to be honest, the crowd was unbelievable today. Like, absolutely. Absolutely unbelievable, and I mean it. I mean, we had some crazy points, and I felt, let's call it, love to both sides. And the only thing probably is 1,000 Spanish guys at 5-3 started screaming between first and second serve. That's not so nice, but I guess they were desperate, so I'm happy it didn't help them. They can go to sleep now.
I have one more.
It's so Russian.
That was hilarious.
Yo.
Go to sleep now.
Russian, like, I don't want to get into a whole geopolitical thing, obviously, especially not with 3 minutes left in the show. Actually, if I was going to, now would kind of be the time. Anyway, the point is, Russians are perceived in American society as like big, scary, oh, Mother Russia. And that's very Cold War era and with good reason in certain aspects because, yeah, like the Russian government, Putin, not great, to say the least. But like actual Russian culture is hysterical. Like they are some of the funniest people on the planet. Oh yeah, you know the 5-3 Spanish guys. They start cackling between first and second serve. Sucks for you. You go to sleep now. Like
that was pretty good, Greg. I'm not gonna lie.
It's not bad.
No.
It's not bad.
No.
Hello, I am Daniil Medvedev. All right. LeBron James making some news today. The Athletic was the first I saw to report this, Shams Charania, that apparently LeBron, and this was actually happening before Team USA lost the FIBA World Cup over the weekend, didn't even medal. They lose to Germany and then ultimately to Canada in the bronze medal game. But even before that, LeBron was like, I might do this Olympics thing one more time. Let me see if I can get the gang together. Let me see if Steph and I can do this. If some of the other obviously big names that are a little bit older want to suit up for Team USA in Paris one more time. Here's Gilbert Arenas on his podcast reacting to LeBron James saying he'll play in Paris 2024.
You see what y'all did? Y'all done f***ed up. Yeah, Bron coming. Y'all celebrated too early. The king coming. And he's bringing all Louis Vuitton luggage, yeah.
Yo, if he comes and it's him, Tatum,
they're gonna be nasty.
Steph,
Damian Lillard,
Dame,
D-Book, Kevin Durant, Draymond talking about playing.
If LeBron goes, Draymond's going. You kidding me?
They're winning, for sure.
That's gonna be nasty.
Oh my gosh.
Because those guys know how to play international basketball too.
Mm-hmm. And it's also sort of kind of like the Redeem team. Well, not the Redeem, the Dream team. Because all those guys were, pretty much on the back end of their, well, except Jordan, the back end of their careers. They went out, won the gold, and then, a couple retired.
That's the thing. Like, let's say Tatum comes out and is the best player in the league and the Celtics win the title.
Uh-huh.
That would be the closest. I think the problem is that the best players in the world now actually are not American, so.
Yeah, that too.
There's
that.
Tatum
or Book, one of those players.
Yeah, but I would still take Luka and Giannis,
yeah, for sure.
Joel, whatever. All right, we'll see y'all tomorrow breaking down Monday Night Football, more of the tape as well. See you then.
The Team 980 is always live.